Wu Dao's purgatory did not need to release the origin martial grotto heaven. With the terrifying power of Wu Dao's purgatory, he could burn and refine the other grotto heavens and merge them with the origin martial grotto heaven. The entire process was like water flowing out of a canal. After the origin martial grotto heaven absorbed the dharma of the other grotto heavens, it could also feed the dharma to Wu Dao's purgatory and help it grow. Wu Dao's purgatory and the origin martial grotto heaven could perfectly merge and even complement each other. Chapter 28:15. The 9 underworlds abyss was emitting a green glow. On the other side of the 9 underworlds abyss, Wu Dao's original body had turned into a purgatory, enveloping dozens of yaksha kings within. The flames were raging and blazing. The 2 lights intertwined in the dark night sky of the world of spirits and souls. It was dazzling. The dozens of yaksha kings were horrified to find that their grotto heavens could not withstand the flames of the purgatory at all. Not to mention the grotto heavens of the yaksha kings, even the great perfection grotto heavens could not withstand the burning of Wu Dao's purgatory. The 5 types of powerful flames intertwined with Wu Dao's dharma and Wu Dao's will. Crack, crack, crack. The grotto heavens were shattered one by one. Countless dharma skills merged with Wu Dao's purgatory and turned into streaks of flames that surged into Wu Dao's original body and were devoured by the elemental martial grotto heaven. Wu Dao's original body stood in the air. He was like a huge whirlpool, devouring everything around him without restraint. Without the protection of the grotto heavens, the yaksha kings could not withstand the flames of Wu Dao's purgatory at all. Roar, roar, roar. In the purgatory, the yaksha kings screamed in agony. Some of the yaksha kings were burned to ashes within a few breaths. Not even their bones were left. The remaining yaksha kings were barely holding on. Every inch of their bodies, including their mouths and noses, was spewing flames. They could not survive. In Wu Dao's purgatory, they did not even have the chance to escape. On the other side, the battle between the Void Yaksha and the Yaksha commander had come to an end. The Void Yaksha was covered in blood. The grotto heavens behind him had been shattered. The Void Yaksha commander stepped on him. Half of his face was buried in the wet soil, and he could not move. Ugly slave, you defeated me in every aspect in the past. Did you expect this day to come? The Yaksha commander looked excited. He kept stepping on the Void Yaksha's head. The Void Yaksha's skull seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure. It let out a series of creaking sounds, as if it could shatter at any moment. After all, he had been imprisoned in the Bitter Spring prison for too many years, soaking in the Bitter Spring prison all year round. Not only had his cultivation base stagnated, but his body and bloodline had also suffered great damage and destruction. Although he had escaped from the infernal court and his physical body seemed to have recovered, there were still many hidden injuries in his body. He did not know how long it would take for him to fully recover. On the other hand, Yaksha commander continued to cultivate in the world of spirits and souls. Naturally, Yaksha commander surpassed him. Ugly slave, beg for mercy. The Yaksha commander grinned. If you are sincere, perhaps I will be happy and spare your life. Ha! The Void Yaksha's face was turned to the side as he lay in the blood-colored soil. Only one of his eyes could be seen, and his heart was filled with despair. He knew the Yaksha's methods and temperament. Even if he begged for mercy, this Yaksha commander would not let him go. The other party didn't kill him immediately because he was enjoying the thrill of torturing him. This excitement was also hidden in his blood. If he was in the same situation, he would not let his opponent go either. Ugly slave, you have committed a great crime and were exiled to the Nether River. Now, you have led a foreign race to infiltrate my clan. Your crimes are unforgivable. The Yaksha commander scolded, not just me, even the entire world of spirits and souls will not tolerate you. Before he finished speaking, the Yaksha commander raised his foot again, gathered strength, and then stomped heavily on the Void Yaksha's head. This was enough to crush his head and destroy his primordial spirit. The Void Yaksha closed his eyes. Boom! A loud bang suddenly came from above his head. The Void Yaksha's heart trembled, and he subconsciously opened his eyes to look. He saw a figure burning with flames in the sky, and the Yaksha commander was smashed into pieces by his punch. Immediately after, this person opened his mouth and spat out a dragon-like flame, instantly engulfing the Yaksha commander's shattered flesh and blood. The Yaksha commander's primordial spirit could not escape and was burned to ashes by the flame. It was the Lord of Hell. It was not until now that the Void Yaksha realized that the Lord of Hell did not use his full strength when they fought in the infernal court. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand the power of this Lord of Hell's punch. The Void Yaksha looked at this figure, and a wave of guilt suddenly surged in his heart. If it were not for this person, he would still be trapped in the underground prison of the Bitter Spring Prison, tortured day and night by the bitter spring of hell, never to see the light of day. Just now, it was this person who saved his life again. And he was still thinking about how to sacrifice this person in exchange for his life. The Void Yaksha saw the Yaksha clan's attitude towards him, and in addition to the guilt he felt towards Wu Dao's original body, he could not help but feel disheartened and said, "I lied to you before." Wu Dao's original body looked down from above, his expression calm as he looked indifferently at the Void Yaksha under his feet. The Void Yaksha said, "I lied to you to come to the 9 underworlds abyss because I wanted to follow the 9 underworlds abyss to the river of life to pay a visit to Lady Ghost Mother and offer you to her to wash away my sins. You are a human and the Lord of Hell, and you have a few peerless treasures on you. If Lady Ghost Mother is happy to see you, she might forgive me. You are a human, and I am a Yaksha. We are natural enemies. Even if you saved me, I would not be willing to be controlled by you, so I lied to you." Wu Dao's original body did not say a word. He had long noticed the strangeness of the Void Yaksha, but he did not expect this Yaksha to have a conscience and be honest with him. The Void Yaksha continued, "The commotion here will definitely alarm more powerful Yakshas. Perhaps quasi-emperors or even emperor-level Yakshas will come. Although your combat strength is strong, you are no match for them. After you kill me, hurry up and run." When the Void Yaksha said this, he did not plan to live. Wu Dao's original body suddenly said, "You once said that there is a way to go to a medium-class world in the ghost realm. You lied to me about this too?" "It's true." The Void Yaksha said, "In the ghost realm, one can descend to a medium-class world through a sacrificial ritual. However, only Lady Ghost Mother has the ability to use this method." "Very well." Wu Dao's original body nodded and said faintly, "You did not lie to me about this. I will spare your life for now." After all, he had relied on this Void Yaksha to leave the infernal court and meet up with Qinglian's true body in the underworld. He used the water of the Black Spring to help Qinglian's true body get rid of the curse crisis. That was why he had tolerated the Void Yaksha until now. Although he still could not contact her, Wu Dao's original body speculated that Qinglian's true body should have escaped the crisis. Since Qinglian's true body was fine, he was not in a hurry to return to the medium-class world. As long as he knew that there was a way to go to the medium-class world from the ghost realm, he could always find an opportunity. Of course, there were still too many unknown risks and uncertainties that alarmed the Brahma Ghost Mother. Wu Dao's original body came to the edge of the 9 underworlds abyss and looked at the flickering green light in the abyss. As if sensing something, a strange look flashed across the depths of his eyes. Chapter 28:16. The Void Yaksha looked at the figure of Wu Dao's original body with a dazed expression, and his mood was extremely complicated. In his disheartened state, he told the truth because he was prepared to die. He didn't expect that the Lord of Hell, who was decisive in killing in his eyes, didn't kill him but gave him another chance. The Void Yaksha thought about it and smiled bitterly. "Even if you don't kill me, the Yaksha clan won't let me go." Wu Dao's original body didn't seem to hear him and suddenly asked, "What's under the 9 underworlds abyss? Why does it reflect this dark green light?" At the mention of this, a hint of fear flashed across the Void Yaksha's eyes. He said, "This abyss is the burial ground of the ghost realm. Countless skeletons of ghost realm cultivators are buried here. The Yin Qi is the heaviest. In the extreme Yin environment of the 9 underworlds abyss, an extremely terrifying flame was born, called the Netherworld Ghost Fire." Netherworld Ghost Fire. Wu Dao's original body's eyes lit up. In fact, when he released Wu Dao's purgatory just now, He faintly felt that there seemed to be a powerful force hidden in the depths of the 9 underworld's abyss. This power could produce a trace of resonance with the 5 strongest flames in the domain. Ghost fire was quite common in the cultivation world. In the Emperor Tomb, there were even some cursed ghost fire. This was the first time he heard of the Netherworld ghost fire. Netherworld ghost fire, Netherworld treasure mirror, were the two related? Of course, there are also legends that the Netherworld ghost fire comes from the source of the Nether River, but no one can say for sure. The Void Yaksha continued. In short, the Netherworld ghost fire in the 9 underworld's abyss is extremely terrifying and can burn blood and chi. Even the Emperor Realm experts of the Ghost Realm are wary of it. This dark green light is the fire emitted by the Netherworld ghost fire. At this moment, in the direction of the Yaksha ghost domain, suddenly burst out a terrifying aura. In the darkness, countless Yaksha experts woke up. Hurry up and run. The Void Yaksha noticed this scene and hurriedly urged, when the Quasi-Emperor Yaksha comes, you can't stop it at all. Even if you rely on those treasures to kill 1 or 2 Quasi-Emperors, the true Emperor Yaksha will definitely be alerted. You may be the Lord of Hell, but you can't fight against the entire world of spirits and souls. As for returning to the medium-class world, don't even think about it. Lady Ghost Mother is currently in a deep slumber. She is being guarded by the 10 Rakshasas and the 8 Yakshas. You won't be able to get close to her. Wu Dao's true body had a calm expression as he asked indifferently, what about you? The Void Yaksha grinned and said, I definitely won't be able to live. The Yaksha race won't let me go. Wu Dao's original body sensed the terrifying auras rising from the direction of the Yaksha ghost domain. He looked down at the 9 underworld's abyss and said meaningfully, good luck. If your life is tough, perhaps we will meet again one day. After he finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body leaped into the 9 underworld's abyss. The Void Yaksha was startled and shouted, crazy, this is really crazy. The Void Yaksha struggled to get to his feet and staggered to the edge of the abyss. He looked down into the abyss, but Wu Dao's figure was nowhere to be seen. You jumped into the 9 underworld's abyss. I'm afraid we won't meet again. The Void Yaksha muttered softly. That's not right. He laughed bitterly and said, I'm about to die. After you and I die, if our souls have the chance to escape into the underworld, perhaps we will meet again. At this moment, several Yakshas rushed out from the darkness. The few leading them had terrifying auras and were all at the boundary emperor level. The rest were the Yaksha race's kings. Just now, dozens of Yaksha race's kings had died in this battle. This had directly alarmed the experts of the Yaksha ghost domain's 8 great plains. Apart from the war between the 2 ghost domains, the Yaksha ghost domain had never lost so many people in such a short period of time. What's going on? The Yaksha race's sub-emperor leader asked in a deep voice. This sub-emperor came from one of the 8 great plains, the Half-Shroud Plain. Before this, many Yakshas had gathered in the area and witnessed the entire process. The group of Yakshas stepped forward and recounted the events of the battle that had just taken place. Another quasi-emperor from the Moni Plain turned his eyes and looked at the Void Yaksha. His eyes revealed a murderous glint as he said slowly, ugly slave, you are a sinner, yet you still dare to lead a foreign race into the world of spirits and souls. You deserve to die for betraying the ghost domain. The Half-Shroud Plain sub-emperor said coldly. The Void Yaksha knew that he was going to die, so there was no longer any fear in his heart. He puffed out his chest and said loudly, I did bring that human in, but I've never betrayed the ghost domain. You still dare to deny it? The Snow Mountain sub-emperor sneered and stared at the Void Yaksha. He asked slowly, speak? How did you survive after being exiled to the Netherworld River? How did you return to the ghost domain? Tell me the entire process, including the origin of that human. If you hide anything, I'll torture you until you're better off dead. The Void Yaksha had a clear conscience and had nothing to hide. He said, I was exiled to the Netherworld River by Lady Ghost Mother. I thought I was going to die, but who knew that I would be swept into another branch of the Netherworld River, and this branch leads to the Hell Domain. In the depths of the 9 underworld's abyss, Wu Dao could no longer control his body and could only continue to descend. There seemed to be an invisible force in the abyss that was pulling his body forcefully. Wu Dao looked down and saw that the bottom of the abyss was filled with corpses piled up into mountains under the green light. The most obvious feature of these corpses was that there was no flesh on their bodies, but their bones were intact. Some of the corpses were still in a state of battle before they died. Through the shape of these corpses, one could easily tell the race of the owner of these corpses. Some belonged to the Yaksha race. Some of the corpses had bone wings on their backs and clearly belonged to the Rakshasa race. Suddenly, Wu Dao's body narrowed his eyes and looked at the skeleton of the Rakshasa race. There were actually 4 pairs of bone wings on the back of this Rakshasa skeleton. One had to know that the Rakshasa race's true spirit only had 2 pairs of bone wings. Kings had 3 pairs of bone wings. Only when they cultivated to the emperor realm could they grow a 4th pair of bone wings. This was an emperor realm Rakshasa, and the skull of this emperor realm Rakshasa was pierced through by the sharp claws of another Yaksha. The bone wings on this Rakshasa's back cut off half of the Yaksha's head. If nothing went wrong, this Yaksha was also an emperor realm expert. The depths of the 9 underworlds abyss was indeed the burial ground of the ghost world. There were actually the skeletons of an emperor realm expert. Moreover, there were more than 2 of them. The martial Dao true body could see more than a dozen well-preserved emperor realm skeletons among the countless white skeletons, standing tall and upright. Although it was only a skeleton and it was unknown how long it had been dead, it still emitted a heart-palpitating aura. Ghost chi lingered around it and its might was still there. Chapter 28:17. In the crevices of these bones, clusters of dark green flames were emitting. The temperature was not high, but it made Wu Dao's original body feel an intense burning pain. Netherworld Ghost Flame. As if sensing the arrival of Wu Dao's original body, the flames that were originally quietly burning in the crevices of the bones suddenly became violent. The fire surged, as if countless ghost shadows had appeared, instantly drowning Wu Dao's original body. Bang! Wu Dao's original body fell heavily onto the pile of bones. His entire body had been engulfed by the netherworld ghost flame, and his chi and blood were rapidly being consumed. The Void Yaksha was right. The netherworld ghost flame could burn chi and blood. Not only that, it was also crazily burning the flesh and blood of Wu Dao's original body. It was as if countless ghost shadows were hidden in the flames, crazily biting his flesh and blood. The body of Wu Dao's original body was shriveling at a speed visible to the naked eye. Pain. Intense pain. But this pain was far from the pain caused by the hellfire in the Avicii hell. Wu Dao's original body was still able to maintain his consciousness. He chose to jump down the 9 nether abyss. Of course, it was not on impulse. Just now, that battle had already alarmed the Yaksha ghost realm. Just as the Void Yaksha had said, once a quasi-emperor or emperor realm expert descended, he would not be able to resist at all. And the ghost realm was too unfamiliar to him. Even if he fled immediately, he might not be able to hide for long. The best way to retreat was the 9 nether abyss. In the 9 nether abyss, there was the netherworld ghost flame. Even emperor realm experts were wary of it, so Wu Dao's original body naturally could not resist it. But as long as he could fuse the netherworld ghost flame into his body before it killed him and become the 6th flame in Wu Dao's purgatory, the netherworld ghost flame would no longer be a threat. This action was naturally extremely dangerous. However, Wu Dao's original body had a similar experience in the Avicii hell, so he took the risk to try to devour and refine the netherworld ghost flame. If he failed, he would not be able to avoid death. But if he succeeded, the improvement of Wu Dao's original body would be too great. Wu Dao's purgatory had once again merged with such a powerful and terrifying flame. His domain's power had greatly increased. It was even extremely likely that this nether ghost flame would allow the cultivation of Wu Dao's main body to rise by a level in a short period of time. Wu Dao's main body endured the pain and sat down cross-legged. His clothes had already been reduced to ashes, and even the Mo Luo mask had fallen off his face. If there was anyone else here, they wouldn't be able to recognize him. Wu Dao's original body had long changed beyond recognition under the burning of the netherworld ghost flames. Fortunately, he cultivated Wu Dao and condensed the true Wu Dao body. Every inch of his flesh and blood contained Wu Dao's laws and Wu Dao's will. Otherwise, in just these few breaths of time, the flesh and blood on his body would have been completely incinerated. This abyss was a place of extreme een, and there were countless ghost ray skeletons. Baleful qi pervaded the air, and under the nourishment of the year, the nether ghost flame was incomparably powerful. Even Emperor Realm experts were wary of it, and the true Wu Dao body couldn't withstand it. It could only delay the burning speed of the nether ghost flame to the greatest extent, and by time for Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body released Wu Dao's purgatory, and at the same time turned into Wu Dao's furnace, constantly trying to refine the nether ghost flame. The nether ghost flame was too strong. It was different from the 5 supreme flames he controlled. Moreover, even if Wu Dao's main body tried to refine the nether ghost flame with his martial spirit fire, red lotus karmic fire, calamity fire, dragon phoenix flame, and hellfire, he couldn't subdue it in a short period of time. Wu Dao's main body could only endure the pain and remain conscious. The harder it was to subdue a flame, the greater the improvement it would bring to his control. Moreover, Wu Dao's main body's martial spirit was a ball of purple flame, and no one could compare with him in terms of understanding and perception of flames. If the refinement failed, he tried again. The cycle repeated itself over and over again. The nether ghost flame on Wu Dao's main body didn't extinguish, and as time passed, the flesh on his body became less and less. After an unknown period of time, in the depths of the 9 underworlds abyss, among the countless skeletons, there was another skeleton sitting cross-legged. At this time, Wu Dao's main body didn't have any flesh on it. Only a skeleton engraved with countless mysterious runes, intertwined with Dao and Law, was left sitting there, bathed in dark green flames. Through the 2 holes in the skull, one could clearly see a cluster of purple flame floating behind the forehead. If all the flesh and blood on Wu Dao's main body were burned to ashes by the nether ghost flame, the next step would be his essence spirit. The nether ghost flame wouldn't burn bones, so there were countless skeletons left in this abyss, piling up into mountains. Time was running out. Wu Dao's main body was as calm as water. Beside him, other than the dark green nether ghost flame, there were 4 flames floating. These 4 flames continued to revolve around him, resonating with the martial soul fire behind his eyebrows. Suddenly, the skeleton trembled, and 2 dark green flames suddenly rose from the black holes in its eyes. It was the nether ghost flame. In the next moment, the aura of the skeleton changed drastically, as if it had merged with the surrounding nether ghost flame. Although the nether ghost flame was still burning on his body, he didn't feel any harm. Instead, there was a warm and comfortable feeling. Success. Wu Dao's main body was overjoyed. Although the power of the nether ghost flame released by him was far inferior to the nether ghost flame in the 9 underworlds abyss due to his cultivation realm. But the surrounding nether ghost flame could no longer hurt him. In the next moment, countless pieces of flesh and blood were rapidly growing on the skeleton, filling the entire body. Under the shroud of the nether ghost flame, Wu Dao's main body reconstructed the true Wu Dao body. At the same time, the aura in his body also rose rapidly. In Wu Dao's purgatory, there was another type of strong flame. The power of the domain sword, and the speed of refining the scripture secret technique also increased. Whether it was Wu Dao's purgatory or reconstructing the true Wu Dao body, they both required a large amount of heaven and earth essence qi. The skeleton suddenly stood up and opened its mouth to swallow and spit out large mouthfuls. Whoosh! Whoosh! An endless stream of ghost qi emerged from the sky and the ground. As if it was being pulled by a strong force, it surged towards the 9 underworlds abyss. For ordinary cultivators, it was very difficult to absorb ghost qi to cultivate. But for Wu Dao's main body, there was no need to worry at all. A large amount of dense ghost qi surged into the Wu Dao's purgatory and was instantly burned by the 6 types of strong flames. The impurities were refined, leaving behind incomparably pure heaven and earth essence qi that nourished the true Wu Dao body. Wu Dao's main body reconstructed the true Wu Dao body. the flesh and blood on his body were rapidly filling up, and his body gradually returned to normal. Wu Dao's purgatory was also constantly accumulating energy, rapidly reaching its peak. Boom! A deafening sound came from Wu Dao's main body. In an instant, the earth shook. An even more terrifying domain with a larger range burst forth instantly. Raging flames soared into the sky and even rushed out of the 9 underworlds abyss. His main body had advanced another step in Wu Dao's cultivation realm. Greater mastery of the martial domain realm. End of chapter. Chapter 28:18. In the 9 underworlds abyss. What happened? What's going on? The group of yakshas who were interrogating the void yakshas could not help but frown when they sensed the commotion coming from the 9 underworlds abyss. A few yaksha quasi-emperors came to the edge of the abyss and looked down. In their senses, the 9 underworlds abyss was like the mouth of a giant beast that could devour heaven and earth. It was crazily swallowing the ghostly chi of the entire ghost world. The void yakshas were also shocked. There had never been such a commotion in the 9 underworlds abyss. Earlier on, the Lord of Hell had leaped into the abyss. Could this commotion be related to the Lord of Hell? The void yakshas could not believe it. Logically speaking, the Lord of Hell should have been reduced to a pile of bones by the netherworld ghost flames in such a short time. Did you guys see that foreign being jump into the abyss with your own eyes? One of the yaksha quasi-emperors turned around and looked at his clansmen who were watching from a distance. There's no mistake. This human has a strong temperament. He killed himself here. Many yakshas hurriedly replied. Another yaksha quasi-emperor sneered. Strong temperament? If he falls into my hands, I'll make him suffer a fate worse than death. Dying in the 9 underworlds abyss is too easy for him. Before he finished speaking, a loud sound came from the bottom of the abyss. Then the earth and mountains shook. The yakshas who were standing at the edge of the abyss were not prepared for this. They staggered and were shocked. They quickly rose into the air and looked toward the 9 underworlds abyss. In the next moment, a ball of ferocious flames erupted from the bottom of the 9 underworlds abyss like a volcanic eruption. It instantly engulfed a yaksha quasi-emperor who could not dodge in time. The yaksha quasi-emperor screamed in agony as his body was engulfed in flames. He hurriedly propped up his grotto heaven and activated his bloodline to resist the flames from the abyss. His grotto heaven already contained a trace of the power of the world. However, his grotto heaven could not withstand the burning flames. Within a few breaths, it was burned red. Not only that, his blood chi was also burning rapidly. His body was shriveling at a speed visible to the naked eye. The quasi-emperor of the yaksha race shrieked in terror as he tried to escape the area enveloped by the flames. However, no matter how hard he tried, he was unable to break out of the ring of fire. At the edge of this terrifying flame, there seemed to be an invisible barrier that kept him inside. Kakaka! The yaksha boundary emperor's grotto heaven could no longer hold on and cracks began to appear on it. His originally tall and sturdy body had shrunk by a whole circle from the burning. He was like a skeleton wrapped in charred skin, emitting thick smoke. Before long, under the horrified gazes of countless yakshas, the quasi-emperor of the yaksha race was burned to ashes by the flames spewing out from the bottom of the abyss. Many of the yakshas were shocked by the scene before them. In just a few breaths, a quasi-emperor level expert was burned to death. Moreover, the flames that gushed out from the abyss were clearly not the netherworld ghost flames, but another type of blazing flame. Countless Tao arts were interwoven within it, and it contained a powerful will. What is this? Where did this flame come from? The yakshas whose cultivation was not high enough retreated in fear. Even the yaksha boundary emperors were wary and did not dare to recklessly step forward. Even the yaksha boundary emperor could not withstand it. Even if they stepped forward, they would not be able to do anything. Only the void yaksha looked at the blazing flames in the abyss thoughtfully. The will contained within the blazing flames was somewhat familiar. It was as if a sovereign had descended upon the world. It was extremely powerful and unshakable. It seemed to have come from the Lord of Hell. However, the Lord of Hell's purgatory could only kill a grotto heaven yaksha at most. It should not be able to trap a quasi-emperor. However, even a quasi-emperor could not withstand the blazing flames in front of them. Could it be that the Lord of Hell is not dead? The Void Yaksha suddenly recalled the meaningful words Wu Dao had said to him before leaping into the 9 underworlds abyss. Although he did not know what had happened in the 9 underworlds abyss, the Void Yaksha could vaguely sense that the terrifying flames had something to do with Wu Dao. When Wu Dao had just stepped into the martial domain realm, he could already defeat Grotto Heaven realm cultivators and suppress all Grotto Heaven realm kings. Now that he had reached the martial domain realm, the power of Wu Dao's purgatory had skyrocketed. It could completely suppress a boundary emperor. However, the martial Dao body's improvement did not stop. Wu Dao had already formed the origin martial Grotto Heaven. Although he had absorbed and refined some Grotto Heavens during the battle in the Jianmu mountain range, he was still far from breaking through. Later, when the Infernal Court was fighting for the Lord of Hell, he had devoured some Grotto Heavens, including the 2 boundary emperors' Grotto Heavens. However, after devouring them, he did not have the chance to refine and absorb them. Just now, during the battle in the abyss, Wu Dao had killed dozens of Yaksha race kings and once again merged these Grotto Heavens into his body. Now, with the help of the martial domain realm, the origin martial Grotto Heaven was also operating, madly absorbing and digesting the Dao techniques condensed in the Grotto Heavens. Under normal circumstances, although Wu Dao had already controlled 6 types of supreme flames, he still could not refine and absorb so many Grotto Heavens Dao techniques in a short period of time. However, this was the 9 underworlds abyss. The netherworld ghost flames burning around him had reached the Emperor realm. Wu Dao's netherworld ghost flames were limited by his cultivation realm. The netherworld ghost flames he controlled had not reached the Emperor realm. However, he could use the surrounding netherworld ghost flames to help him refine the Grotto Heavens he had devoured. This was the true meaning of inviting fire to oneself. However, after he had comprehended the netherworld ghost flames, the netherworld ghost flames in the 9 underworlds abyss could no longer harm him. With the help of the Emperor-level netherworld ghost flames, the many Grotto Heavens Dao techniques that Wu Dao had devoured were melting at a terrifying speed. What the origin martial Grotto Heaven needed to do was to absorb all of these Dao techniques. After Wu Dao's purgatory reached the greater mastery stage, the origin martial Grotto Heaven also grew rapidly. The power it contained continued to rise, and finally reached the peak. Boom! Once again, a loud sound came from Wu Dao's body. It was earth-shattering. Wu Dao's body suddenly disappeared. Under the cover of the netherworld ghost flames, a dark and deep Grotto Heaven appeared. It suddenly expanded like a huge black hole in the starry sky. Immediately after, the huge and deep Grotto Heaven disappeared again. Wu Dao's body reappeared. After such a short disappearance, the aura of Wu Dao's body had clearly become more terrifying. It was as vast as the starry sky, unfathomable. Grotto Heaven realm, greater mastery. The origin martial Grotto Heaven had transformed into a large Grotto Heaven. Wu Dao's true body, was the origin martial Grotto Heaven. Now that the origin martial Grotto Heaven had reached the greater mastery stage, Wu Dao's physical body and bloodline had also been reborn. His strength had also skyrocketed. Wu Dao's true body felt that with every move he made, he could burst out with shocking divine power. It caused the void to tremble and the wind and clouds to change color. Even if he did not release Wu Dao's purgatory, just relying on his physical body and bloodline, Wu Dao's true body believed that he could fight against a boundary emperor expert. End of chapter. Chapter 28:19. More and more yakshas and rakshasas gathered near the 9 underworlds abyss. They were discussing among themselves, but no one dared to approach the abyss. Before the quasi-emperors could figure out what was going on, another loud explosion came from the depths of the 9 underworlds abyss. The earth shook and the mountains shook. This time, the entire ghost realm was alarmed. Terrifying auras burst out from the 2 ghostly realms, resulting in an unbridled pressure. The emperors who were in seclusion woke up one after another. What's going on? two figures appeared in the sky above the 9 underworld's abyss. Just by standing in the air, they exuded a divine sense aura that made one's heart tremble. Even the ghost realm kings and quasi-emperors present bowed their heads and knelt on the ground with reverence. The commotion in the 9 underworld's abyss had alarmed the two ghost realms' emperors. "My lord," one of the quasi-emperors of the Yaksha race hurriedly recounted what happened earlier in full detail. "A foreign race? He didn't die in the 9 underworld's abyss?" A Yaksha emperor narrowed his eyes. Another Rakshasa imperial emperor with 8 wings snorted coldly and said slowly, "Lady Ghostmother is in a deep slumber. Can you Yakshas bear the responsibility if you disturb her? Stop arguing. Let's deal with the foreign race in the abyss first." The Yaksha emperor said in a deep voice, "There are signs of life in the nether ghost flames below the abyss. If the nether ghost flames can't burn him to death, we'll just kill him." The 8-winged Rakshasa said coldly. The flames spewing out of Wu Dao's purgatory were a great threat to the emperors, but the two ghost realm emperors were not afraid. Boom, boom, boom. The two ghost realm emperors each held up a world and suppressed the burning flames in the 9 underworld's abyss. Just now, the ferocious and terrifying flames were quickly extinguished and collapsed under the suppression of the two ghost realm emperors' worlds. The two ghost realm emperors' eyes were cold as they descended from the sky and descended into the 9 underworld's abyss. The Yakshas and Rakshasas nearby heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this scene. They became excited. It was extremely rare in the ghost realm for the imperial emperors of the Yaksha clan and the Rakshasa clan to appear at the same time and even join forces against the enemy. Sigh. In the end, an imperial emperor was still alarmed. The Void Yaksha looked at the figures of the two imperial emperors and suddenly felt worried for the human. It wouldn't be too bad if he died. He would be spared from being tortured by the two clans. However, if he didn't die, even if he obtained some fortuitous encounters below, how could he contend against two sovereign emperors? Below the abyss. Wu Dao's main body, who had just broken through not too long ago, quickly sensed the abnormality. Right above him, there were two incomparably powerful forces suppressing him. His Wu Dao purgatory, which had just reached large success, could not withstand it at all. It only lasted for a short while before it began to collapse. Wu Dao frowned slightly. If he was not mistaken, the two above should be imperial emperors of the ghost realm. Only the power of the emperor realm could suppress his Wu Dao purgatory. Wu Dao's main body's figures suddenly became a little blurry, and his eyes were deep. He had just had a thought. He wanted to release the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven and cooperate with the Wu Dao Purgatory to fight against the two imperial emperors of the ghost realm. Ever since Wu Dao Purgatory was formed, it had never been released at the same time as the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven. Wu Dao's main body was not sure how powerful the domain and Grotto Heaven would be when released at the same time. He speculated that the fusion of the two powers might be able to fight against the Emperor realm. But very quickly he suppressed this thought. It was too risky. Once he released the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven, the sense of danger would be too strong, as if a great disaster would befall him at any time. Most importantly, he was still unable to trace the source of this sense of danger. An unknown threat was the most terrifying. Unless he had no choice, there was no need for him to take the risk. So far, although Wu Dao's main body did not control the power of the Emperor realm, there was an inexhaustible power of the Emperor realm in the 9 Nether Abyss. Netherworld Ghost Flame. Wu Dao's main body activated his primordial spirit and used the Netherworld Ghost Flame as a medium to establish a connection with the two standing skeletons around him. The skeletons that could maintain a standing posture in the 9 Nether Abyss were all Emperor Realm experts of the Ghost Realm when they were alive. And now, two balls of dark green flames suddenly rose from the holes in the eyes of the two skeletons, and the flames on their bodies shone brightly. In an instant, the two Emperor Realm skeletons seemed to have recovered their vitality and roared into the sky. The skeletons in the 9 Nether Abyss had been burned by the Netherworld Ghost Flame all year round. From a certain point of view, they had been tempered into weapons and became a part of the Netherworld Ghost Flame. After Wu Dao's main body comprehended the Netherworld Ghost Flame, He could use the netherworld ghost flame to control the skeletons in the 9 nether abyss. On the other side, the 2 imperial emperors of the Yaksha clan and the Rakshasa clan condensed a world and suppressed it, quickly approaching the bottom of the 9 nether abyss. In their line of sight, they could already see a black-haired, purple-robed man standing in the netherworld ghost flame at the bottom of the abyss. He wore a silver mask on his face and his flesh and blood were intact. He was unharmed. The 2 imperial emperors frowned. With their cultivation realm, they did not dare to be so careless. They had to release a world to resist the netherworld ghost flame at the bottom of the 9 nether abyss. What was going on with this foreign race? At this moment, the 2 standing skeletons closest to the purple-robed man suddenly woke up. The originally fine netherworld ghost flame on their bodies burned fiercely, and the flames soared. Then, the 2 skeletons surrounded by flames roared into the sky. They suddenly turned their heads and stared at the 2 imperial emperors in the air. 2 balls of dark green flames burned in their eyes. It was strange and sinister. The 2 imperial emperors of the Yaksha clan and the Rakshasa clan felt a chill on their backs when they were stared at by the 2 skeletons. They were bewildered. The 2 imperial emperors of the ghost realm saw it clearly. The 2 skeletons below were both imperial emperors in the past. One of them was from the Rakshasa clan. It had 8 bone wings on its back. It was very obvious. These 2 imperial emperors had been dead for many years. Why did they suddenly wake up? And why were they so hostile towards them? Boom! At this moment, the 2 imperial emperors suddenly moved. The Yaksha clan's imperial emperors stomped heavily on the ground, crushing countless corpses. It rushed into the sky and pounced on the Yaksha clan's imperial emperors. The other Rakshasa clan's imperial emperors was burning with dark green flames. It flapped its 8 wings and flew into the sky. It was even faster than the Rakshasa clan's imperial emperors. The 2 imperial emperors of the Yaksha clan and the Rakshasa clan were shocked. If it were just 2 imperial emperors, they would not be a threat to them. Although the imperial emperors' bones were tough, without flesh and blood, their strength was greatly reduced. In addition, they were dead and their primordial spirits were destroyed. They could not support a world, so their combat strength was limited. However, the 2 imperial emperors' bodies were still burning with the netherworld ghost flame that was powerful enough to threaten them. Chapter 28:20. The Yaksha and Rakshasa emperors did not dare to be careless. They held up a world and suppressed the 2 skeletons that were burning with the netherworld ghost fire. Boom! Boom! Accompanied by 2 loud bangs, the power of the Emperor realm collided and exploded into a huge gray halo that quickly spread out. The void at the bottom of the abyss collapsed and shattered in an instant. The 2 skeletons did not have a world to protect them after all. They were suppressed by the 2 Emperor realm experts and fell heavily on the pile of bones. However, they could not feel pain at all and did not know fear. Under the control of Wu Dao, they quickly stood up and rushed up again. Boom! 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 The Yaksha and Rakshasa emperors were fighting fiercely with the 2 skeletons at the bottom of the abyss. The 2 skeletons could not fight against the 2 Emperor realm experts head-on. However, after every head-on collision, the world held up by the 2 Emperor realm experts would be stained with the netherworld ghost fire and its power would be constantly weakened. Under the 9 underworlds abyss, the Yin Qi was endless. The netherworld ghost fire on the 2 skeletons was constantly nourished by the Yin Qi. It would not be extinguished and the fire on the 2 skeletons grew stronger and stronger. Under this situation, the 2 Emperor realm experts gradually fell into a disadvantage. Of course, it was not realistic to rely on the netherworld ghost fire in the abyss to kill the 2 Emperor realm experts with the help of the 2 skeletons. The Rakshasa emperors saw that they could not defeat the skeletons. Their eyes turned and fell on Wu Dao's body. They said slowly, "Human, this is the ghost realm. You can't escape at all. You'd better surrender." The Yaksha emperors also laughed sinisterly. "Foreign race, you killed so many of my people. I will let you taste the torture of the ghost realm." Wu Dao's face turned cold and he activated his divine sense. Beside him, 2 balls of flames suddenly rose from the eye sockets of the other 2 skeletons. The flames on their bodies shone brightly. Boom, boom. Another 2 emperor-level skeletons woke up and rushed towards the 2 monarchs, joining the battle. When the 2 ghost emperors saw this scene, their expressions couldn't help but change. They let out a long howl and retreated as they fought. They were already struggling against 2 Emperor Realm skeletons bathed in netherworld ghost flames, not to mention 4 Emperor Realm skeletons working together. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky above the abyss. A voluptuous, elegant, and enchanting figure walked out from inside. She held a flower basket in her hand, and her entire body emitted a faint light. Under the light, her skin was as white and delicate as ivory. She had moon-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Her appearance was extraordinary. The woman didn't look any different from a human, but as soon as she appeared, the netherworld ghost flames on the 4 skeletons were mostly extinguished. Emperor Realm expert. Moreover, he should be the top imperial emperor in the ghost realm. Greetings, Rakshasa Shurji. When the first 2 ghost realm imperial emperors saw this woman, they quickly retreated and left the battlefield. They bowed respectfully in her direction. Seeing this scene, Wu Dao's main body secretly nodded. In the Rakshasa clan, the men were incomparably ugly, but the women were as beautiful as fairies. The Void Yaksha had once mentioned to Wu Dao's main body that there were 10 Rakshasas ruling over the Rakshasa clan. To be able to make 2 ghost realm imperial emperors so respectful, it was very likely that this woman was one of the 10 Rakshasas. Although Wu Dao's main body hadn't stepped into the Emperor Realm, he could guess that there were strong and weak Emperor Realm experts. For example, Emperor Bo Sun and the World Devastator Demon Emperor were the top powerhouses in the Emperor Realm. Just now, the 2 Ghost Realm Imperial Emperors belonged to the ordinary category in the Emperor Realm. This Rakshasa Shurji's combat strength was very likely to be on par with Emperor Bo Sun and the World Devastator Demon Emperor. What are you guys doing here? Rakshasa Shurji looked coldly at the 2 Rakshasas from the Ghost Realm and said coldly, "Aren't you afraid of disturbing Lord Ghost Mother with such a big commotion?" Reporting to Rakshasa Shurji. The Yaksha clan Imperial Emperor quickly reported what had just happened and pointed at Wu Dao's main body at the bottom of the abyss. "It's this human. Dozens of our Yaksha clan's kings died in his hands. Trash." Rakshasa Shurji's expression didn't change at all. She only laughed coldly. Then, Rakshasa Shurji's gaze turned and landed on Wu Dao's main body. She looked down and said slowly, "You can actually survive the netherworld ghost flames. You have some skills. Let me try." As soon as she finished speaking, Rakshasa Shurji's body moved and pounced towards Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body didn't dare to be careless. He controlled the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons to block Rakshasa Shurji's attack. At the same time, he split his divine sense to awaken the other Emperor Realm skeletons at the bottom of the abyss. Just the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons alone wouldn't be able to stop Rakshasa Shurji's attack. Just as expected, Rakshasa Shurji's lady sneered and turned the flower cage in her hand towards the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons. The flower cage seemed to have turned into a bottomless whirlpool. It released an irresistible force and swallowed the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons. Wu Dao's main body instantly lost contact with the 4 Emperor Realm skeletons. The world of Shurji Rakshasa's daughter was inside the flower cage. Wu Dao's main body moved. Bush, bush, bush. At the bottom of the abyss, the eyes of the Emperor Realm skeletons lit up. The netherworld ghost flames on their bodies burned brightly. They were all awakened. The Emperor Realm skeletons attacked at the same time. They surrounded Rakshasa Shurji's lady. Rakshasa Shurji's lady frowned. She released the flower cage in her hand again and continued to devour the Emperor Realm skeletons. Wu Dao's main body stretched out his arms. He stepped on the netherworld ghost flames and floated in the air. He crazily urged his divine sense to spread into the abyss. He tried his best to awaken the Emperor Realm skeletons in the abyss. Rumble. In an instant, the 9 underworlds abyss shook and countless boulders rolled down. Many skeletons that had been dead for a long time were bathed in the netherworld ghost flames. They woke up and roared into the sky. A burst of ghostly wails erupted. It was breathtaking. Seeing this scene, Rakshasa Shurji's lady's expression changed. In her world, swallowing a dozen Emperor Realm skeletons wasn't a problem. But if all the skeletons in the abyss woke up, each of them was covered in netherworld ghost flames. Her world wouldn't be able to withstand it. More importantly, the commotion here was too big. At this moment, in the direction of the River of Life, a terrifying aura suddenly burst out. It was as if an incomparably terrifying existence had awakened. The skeletons that were howling in the 9 underworlds abyss seemed to be frightened and shut their mouths. Wu Dao's main body also subconsciously looked in the direction of the River of Life. There was only endless darkness there. But in that endless darkness, there seemed to be an indescribable shadow. It was boundless, as if it was looking down on the entire ghost realm. Near the 9 underworlds abyss, whether it was the Yaksha race or the Rakshasa race, regardless of cultivation realm, they all revealed a look of awe and fear. They all knelt on the ground. Even Rakshasa Shurji's lady knelt down. Sigh. In the direction of the River of Life, at the end of the 9 underworlds abyss, a faint sigh came from the endless darkness. In the 9 underworlds abyss, the netherworld ghost flames on the skeletons that had just awakened were all extinguished. Chapter 28-21. With just a sigh, even the netherworld ghost flame under the 9 underworlds abyss could not withstand it. In the 9 underworlds abyss, countless ghosts knelt on the ground, not daring to move. They kept quiet out of fear, and no one even dared to raise their heads. Only Wu Dao's original body was still standing there. He looked at the huge shadow in the distance and felt his heart palpitate. That kind of power was enough to kill him. Even if he used the Yuanwo Grotto Heaven, the prison-suppressing cauldron, and sacrificed his blood essence to activate the netherworld treasure mirror, he would not be able to withstand it. Emperor. In the mind of the martial Dao body, these 2 words that weighed more than 10,000 caddies flashed past. After his martial domain realm and Yuanwu Grotto Heaven had broken through to the greater success stage, although his combat strength was still not comparable to an imperial emperor, he had already seen the threshold of the emperor realm. Now, facing the shadow in the distance, he only felt that it was unreachable. Was this the lord of the ghost realm, the Brahma ghost mother? The gap was too big. This sigh was able to extinguish the netherworld ghost flame. Naturally, it could also extinguish the martial spirit flame in his sea of consciousness with ease. Why is it so noisy? A voice came from the endless darkness. It was a little hoarse and had a hint of vicissitudes, as if the owner of this voice was very old. The entire world of spirits and souls was in complete silence. Only this voice reverberated in the vast world. Shurji and Rakshasa still maintained their kneeling posture. They looked at the 2 imperial emperors not far away and signaled for them to speak. Reporting to Lord Ghost Mother. The 2 emperors of the ghost realm hurriedly recounted what had just happened in detail. After they finished, there was no sound for a long time, as if the Brahma ghost mother had fallen asleep again. However, all the ghosts knew that their master was watching them from the end of the darkness. That terrifying aura still shrouded the entire ghost realm. Oh! After some time, the Brahma ghost mother's voice sounded again. Ugly slave, you're still alive? Hearing this, the void Yaksha trembled in fear. Reporting to Lord Ghost Mother, I was lucky to survive and brought that human back here. I have no ill intentions. I will never betray Lord Ghost Mother and the ghost race. The void Yaksha said in a trembling voice. The Brahma ghost mother did not respond. All of a sudden, Wu Dao's original body felt goosebumps all over his body, and his scalp tingled. Although he could not see anything, his spiritual sense told him that the Brahma ghost mother's gaze was on him. In the endless darkness, the Brahma ghost mother was watching him. The new Lord of Hell? Ha! The Brahma ghost mother chuckled and murmured, you must be the one he mentioned. Wu's God's mother. What did Brahma ghost mother mean by that? Who was he? Had someone else mentioned him to the Brahma ghost mother? Without waiting for the martial Dao body to react, the darkness in the distance constantly surged, and a large shadow shrouded over, as if it had turned into a huge ghost hand, grabbing towards him. Enveloped by the ghostly hand, the martial Dao body could not move at all. He could only watch as the ghostly hand descended upon him. The ghost claw came to a stop above his head and retracted slightly. The chest of Wu Dao's original body exploded, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after, a dark light flickered and was forcefully pulled out of his body, landing in the palm of the ghost mother. The netherworld mirror. This treasure could not be placed in a storage bag, so Wu Dao's original body placed it in the origin martial grotto heaven. Unexpectedly, the Brahma ghost mother seemed to be able to see through something and grabbed the netherworld mirror from his body. The Brahma ghost mother's voice sounded. The ancient mirror is indeed on you. The Yaksha emperor volunteered and said, Lord Ghost Mother, there's no need for you to kill a human ant personally. Leave it to us. Who said I'm going to kill him? The Brahma ghost mother asked. All the ghosts in the 9 underworlds abyss were stunned. The ghost hand loosened and sent the netherworld mirror back into Wu Dao's body. The ghost hand dissipated and disappeared. The Yaksha monarch was puzzled and asked, Lady Ghost Mother, this human killed dozens of Yaksha monarchs and disturbed your rest. Are you questioning me? Before the Yaksha emperor could finish, the Brahma ghost mother interrupted him. Her tone was calm, but it was hair-raising. The Yaksha emperor trembled and shook his head. No, I'm just... Suddenly, a black finger reached out from the darkness. The fingernails were long and sharp, and it pierced through the head of the Yaksha ghost monarch. The Yaksha emperor's face was filled with fear, and his eyes were wide open. An emperor's primordial spirit was destroyed, and he died on the spot with his eyes wide open. The surrounding ghost clan members were so frightened that they trembled, not even daring to breathe loudly. The Void Yaksha was even more frightened. His initial plan was to lure Wu Dao to the Brahma ghost mother and use Wu Dao's life to atone for his sins. But now, not only did the Brahma ghost mother not kill Wu Dao, but she also killed a Yaksha emperor. As a bystander, the martial Dao body was also secretly shocked. An emperor realm powerhouse, a pinnacle existence in a medium-class world, had been killed so easily by the Brahma ghost mother. To be precise, the Yaksha emperor was not questioning her. He was just expressing his doubts. However, the Brahma ghost mother did not give him a chance to explain and killed him instantly. The martial Dao body even had a misconception. The Brahma ghost matriarch could kill this Yaksha imperial emperor as easily as crushing an ant. What's your name? The Brahma ghost mother looked at Wu Dao in the darkness and asked slowly. Araki Takashi. Wu Dao did not hide anything. You want to return to the middle world? The Brahma ghost mother asked again. Wu Dao nodded. The Brahma ghost mother said, 3 days later, I will send you out of the ghost realm. What's the condition? Wu Dao asked. He felt a little strange that the Brahma ghost mother agreed to this so easily. A low and hoarse laugh suddenly came from the darkness. The Brahma ghost mother said, although you are very weak, you are still the Lord of Hell. Wu Dao frowned slightly. The Brahma ghost mother meant that she would help him leave the ghost realm because of his identity as the Lord of Hell, so there was no condition? Wu Dao looked at the darkness in the distance and pondered for a while. Then he said, there is one more thing. I want to take that Void Yaksha called Ugly Slave with me. He committed a capital crime. The Brahma ghost mother said faintly. But the Void Yaksha felt a chill in his heart. That was the exact tone Nirvana ghost mother had used when she killed a Yaksha imperial emperor. Wu Dao didn't seem to hear the killing intent in the Brahma ghost mother's words. He said indifferently, as the Lord of Hell, protecting a Yaksha emperor doesn't seem to be a big deal. Hearing this, the ghouls were speechless. None of them dared to speak to the Brahma ghost mother in such a tone. The Brahma ghost mother turned her head slightly and glared at Wu Dao. After a long silence, the Brahma ghost mother's voice came again. You are quite bold. Then the darkness fell silent again. The terrifying pressure hanging over everyone's heads disappeared. It seemed that the Brahma ghost mother had left. Chapter 28-22. Peace was restored between heaven and earth. The gigantic shadow in the darkness gradually faded. Faced with Wu Dao's rude request, the Brahma ghost mother did not give an answer. She merely replied with a "You're quite bold," before leaving quietly. However, all the ghosts knew that no answer was the best answer. The void yaksha knelt on the spot in a daze. Before he knew it, he was already drenched in cold sweat. After a long time, he heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that his life was saved. Even now, he still felt that it was unreal. In the 9 underworlds abyss, the Rakshasa Shurji stood up and turned to look deeply at Wu Dao's true body before leaving. She was not the only one. All the ghosts could tell that the Brahma ghost mother's attitude towards Wu Dao's true body was clearly different. Perhaps it was because of his identity as the Lord of Hell, or some other reason. All in all, although Wu Dao's true body was a human from a middle world, no one in the entire ghost world dared to provoke him anymore. The corpse of the Void Yaksha race's emperor was still warm. All the ghosts in the 9 underworlds abyss dispersed one after another. Wu Dao's true body returned to the sky above the abyss. Not far away, the Void Yaksha was still kneeling on the spot with lingering fear, as though he had yet to recover from his shock. Wu Dao's true body arrived above the abyss and looked at him calmly without saying a word. The Void Yaksha looked helpless and lowered his head slightly, not daring to look at Wu Dao's true body in shame. This human in front of him had saved him from the bitter spring prison, but he was still harboring evil intentions. And now, this human had saved his life once more. The Void Yaksha stammered, not knowing what to say. Wu Dao's true body spoke slowly, "You've already died once earlier on." The Void Yaksha nodded instinctively. Just now, if Wu Dao's true body had not pleaded for him, the Brahma ghost mother would definitely not have let him off. Wu Dao's true body said, "From now on, you'll follow me." However, Wu Dao's original body suddenly changed the topic. His eyes were deep as he stared at the Void Yaksha. He didn't continue speaking. The Void Yaksha seemed to have understood something. He took a deep breath and pierced his glabella with the tip of his finger, releasing a wisp of his soul. He lowered his head and held it up with both hands, handing it to Wu Dao's real body. "Thank you, Master, for granting me a new life. If I have second thoughts in the future, with this soul as a guide, may the heavens and earth destroy me." The Void Yaksha chanted a secret incantation. The wisp of spirit condensed into a mark in the void before gradually fading away and disappearing. Wu Dao's original body nodded slightly and said, "Since you're following me, I'll bestow you a title." It turned out that this Void Yaksha was called Ugly Slave. Such a lowly name couldn't be considered a title at all. It was just a simple title. "Lord, please grant me a name." The Void Yaksha kowtowed again. Wu Dao waved his sleeves and wrote the word "fear" on the ground. He slowly said, "From now on, you are the King of Fear." King of Fear? Looking at the word in front of him, the Void Yaksha was a little confused. Wu Dao's original body said, "I hope that from now on, you will have no fear in your heart, but can make others feel fear." Fear. The Void Yaksha murmured softly, his eyes gradually brightening, revealing a ferocious ghost face again. He was a little excited and grinned. "From now on, I am the King of Fear." Compared to Ugly Slave, King of Fear was naturally much more pleasing to the ear. Wu Dao's original body pleaded for mercy for this Void Yaksha. Naturally, he already had a plan and valued his ability. In the Heaven Wasteland sect, there were the 7 emotions demon generals of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred, and desire. Among them, there was joyful monk Ming Kong, furious immortal king Feng Kantian, sorrowful Shao Imogu Tong, loving zither demon Chiu Siluo, hateful Yen Beichen, and lustful demoness Ji. There was never a suitable candidate for the word fear. And when Wu Dao's original body first saw this Void Yaksha, he had this thought. Not to mention the Void Yaksha's ability, just his appearance was enough to frighten people. If he could successfully return to the middle world, Wu Dao's original body might not go to the heaven realm. His first destination was still the great wilderness. Having cultivated to this stage, Wu Dao's original body already had enough confidence to go to the great wilderness to look for Dayu. But he was still worried about the Heaven Baron sect. The foundation of the Heaven Baron sect was not enough. Only Fong Kenan was an immortal king expert, and he was only an ordinary immortal king who had condensed a small grotto heaven. His biggest purpose in subduing this void yaksha was to let him go to the Heaven Baron sect as the strongest battle force guarding the Heaven Baron sect. With the means of this void yaksha, unless it was a quasi-emperor or an emperor realm expert, there was nothing to fear. In fact, Wu Dao's original body had many doubts in his heart, and perhaps only the Brahma Ghost Mother could give him an explanation. Like the hymn that the Brahma Ghost Mother had mentioned before. Like the legend of the vast thousand domains, the existence of the six paths, what was the catastrophe that happened in the middle world, and so on. As a great emperor, the Brahma Ghost Mother must know many ancient secrets. However, in the past 3 days, the Brahma Ghost Mother had not appeared. Wu Dao's original body had not even seen the appearance of the Brahma Ghost Mother, but from the voice, he roughly guessed that the other party was an old woman. Wu Dao's original body had asked the fearful king, but even he had not seen the true appearance of the Brahma Ghost Mother. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, the voice of the Brahma Ghost Mother sounded again. You should prepare to leave. Wu Dao's original body was invigorated. He was pushed down the dry well by the tomb keeper, entered the gloomy and dark hell realm, passed through the netherworld, drifted in the cycle of reincarnation, and finally entered the ghost realm. Now, he was finally going to return to the middle world. An invisible force suddenly descended. Wu Dao's original body tried to break free, but found that he could not resist at all. It should be the Brahma Ghost Mother's personal attack. Under the guidance of this force, Wu Dao's original body and the fearful king passed through layers of space. Ghostly shadows flickered in front of their eyes, and they arrived at a strange pitch-black beach. Wu Dao's original body frowned. It was dark in front of them, and the gentle breeze emitted a damp aura. This place should still be in the ghost realm and had not left. The fearful king seemed to have noticed something. He looked at the darkness in front and muttered softly, "The river of life is in front." But, as if in response to the fearful king, the sound of water came from the depths of the darkness. An incomparably tall ghostly figure slowly rose from the river, emitting a terrifying aura. It was just a simple movement, but the entire world seemed to be unable to bear it and trembled slightly. The Brahma Ghost Mother. Wu Dao's original body looked over, trying to see this ghostly figure clearly, but he could not see anything. The ghostly figure waved its hand lightly, and an ancient altar made of white bones and stained with blood gradually appeared on the beach not far away. You two go up. The Brahma Ghost Mother's voice sounded again. Wu Dao's original body did not hesitate and stood on the altar. If the Brahma Ghost Mother wanted to harm him, there was no need to go through so much trouble. The fearful king also hurriedly followed. A mysterious incantation came from the direction of the river of life. Wu Dao's original body's heart skipped a beat. These words were somewhat familiar, as if they were of the same origin as the Yin-Yang Talisman Scripture and Hell Sutra of the 9 Springs. Before he could think further, the white bone altar shook and burst out with rays of bloody light, forming a gigantic bloody light beam that pierced through the clouds. It broke through the darkness and enveloped the two of them, disappearing. End of chapter. Chapter 28-23. It was a vast land that was dilapidated and desolate. Countless living beings knelt on the ground in a pitch-black mass that stretched as far as the eye could see. Among those living beings, all the men were extremely ugly. They had dark bodies and long vermilion hair. Some of them even had pairs of pitch-black flesh wings on their backs. The women among them looked no different from humans. Furthermore, they had outstanding looks and were seductive. Although they were kneeling on the ground, one could still see their slender waists and graceful postures. It was the Rakshasa race. Furthermore, there were hundreds of millions of them. At the center of this group of Rakshasas was a tall building. To be precise, it was a stone statue of a woman. The woman was extremely beautiful and wore white robes. Wielding a long sword, she stood barefoot. Her shoulders were sharp and her waist was slender. Her skin was smooth and her brows were smoky. This stone statue could be said to be a work of the gods. However, even though it was just a stone statue, It exuded an indescribable charm that overshadowed all the Rakshasas around it and caused one's heart to flutter. If that was the case for a stone statue, one could not help but lament how beautiful the white-robed woman would be. Beside the stone statue, there was a huge circular altar that was covered with mysterious runes. The Rakshasas closest to the stone statue and altar had 3 pairs of flesh wings on their backs. It was clear that their cultivation realms were at the Grotto Heaven realm. Around the altar, there were hundreds of Grotto Heaven realm Rakshasas. Behind the Rakshasa kings was a group of Rakshasas with 2 pairs of flesh wings. All of them were true spirits of the Rakshasa race, and there were more than 10,000 of them. Behind them were the Rakshasas at the mystic, earth and heaven essence realms that had the most numbers. The Rakshasas were kneeling on the ground obediently. It was not because of the stone statue, but because of the dozen or so powerful figures that were descending slowly from midair. There were both men and women among them, and they all had badges with the words Fengtan on their waists. Their auras and attire were clearly different from the Rakshasas. They did not fit in with the environment either. The dozen or so figures stood in the air and looked down at the Rakshasas prostrating on the ground. It was as if they were the rulers of this world. Among the group, a young man stood at the front with a jade fan in his hand. He looked like he had the most distinguished status. The others were like stars surrounding the moon as they stood behind him. Beside this young man, and half a step behind him, stood another old man with a cold expression. There was a silver crescent mark between the elder's eyebrows, among the thousands of races. But, the Moon-In tribe was born with the Moon-In body and could cultivate the baleful In Chi. Apart from the Moon race's elder, who was somewhat unfathomable, the others, including the young man leading the group, were all kings of the Grotto Heaven realm. The young man and the old man from the Moon tribe also had a token hanging on their waists. However, they were different from the tokens that the others had. "Greetings, my lords." Among the Rakshasa below, an old Rakshasa woman looked up carefully with a sad expression and asked, "The celestial tribute world has already taken away some of our true spirits. It's only been a few decades, and the time limit is not up yet. Why are you all here again?" A king from the celestial worship world snorted and scolded, "Shut up. What do you know, old thing? You Rakshasas don't know what's good for you. It's your honor that we're here." "Don't cry." Another Fengtian realm king scolded. The Rakshasas below, including the hundreds of Rakshasas kings, lowered their heads in fear. They did not dare to respond. Logically speaking, there were more Rakshasas than the dozen people in the air. Even the number of kings was greater than the other party. However, this group of Rakshasas did not dare to resist in the slightest when faced with the curses and scoldings of the people in the air. "Interesting." The young man looked at the Rakshasas under his feet and murmured, "So, this is the Joyo Sind land." A king from the celestial tribute world stood out and said slowly, "We're here to pick a few beautiful Rakshasa girls to serve this lord from now on." The lord that the Fengtian realm king mentioned was the young man. The Rakshasas below were silent. Many Rakshasas were terrified. They did not dare to look up, and their bodies trembled. They were afraid that they would be chosen. "Raise your heads." The Fengtian realm king yelled again. He pointed at the top of his head and said, "Don't remind me. Don't blame me for not reminding you. This lord is from the heavens, and has a noble status. To be able to receive this lord's favor is a blessing that you have accumulated over several lifetimes." The Rakshasas below still did not step forward. Although they were forced by the situation and could not resist, they were not willing to lower themselves. "My lord, is there anyone you like?" The king of the celestial world turned around and looked at the young man. There were too many Rakshasas below. When the young man looked over, he was a little dazzled. The young man looked around and shook his head. He seemed dissatisfied and said, "These Rakshasas are not bad, but they can't catch my eye." The young man looked around and suddenly saw the woman in the stone statue. His eyes lit up. The young man opened the jade fan in his hand and walked to the stone statue. He looked at the woman in the stone statue and sized her up. His eyes flashed with lust. Many Rakshasas clenched their fists instinctively when they saw this. They were enraged. The young man made a strange sound. He stared at the woman in the stone statue and licked his lips. He turned around and asked, "Who is this woman?" "My lord." A Fengtian realm king bowed and said, "She's the ancestor of these sinful spirits. Her name is Joyo Plain Maiden, also known as Plain Maiden Rakshasas. She once created an epic. However, it was precisely because she once attempted to defy the heavens that she was defeated and died. The ninth hell world was annihilated and implicated the clansmen under her command to be reduced to sinful spirits for generations to come. They were imprisoned here and were forever unable to rise again." The young man said, "Oh, it's her. I've heard of her." The young man smacked his lips. Suddenly, he stretched out his palm and stroked the face of the stone statue. He said regretfully, "What a pity. If such a beauty was still alive, wouldn't it be great to have sex with me day and night?" The moment he said that, the Rakshasa race was in an uproar. In their hearts, the Joyo Plain Maiden was the totem of their race. They would not allow anyone to humiliate or profane her. Moreover, the Joyo Plain Maiden was once a Dharch. How could anyone trample on the dignity of a Dharch? Chapter 28-24. A commotion broke out among the Rakshasa race, and a commotion broke out. Most of them were mystic origin, earth origin, and heaven origin Rakshasas. The Rakshasas' true spirits and Rakshasas' kings who were closest to the statue were relatively calm. Although they were also extremely angry, they tried their best to restrain themselves, not daring to make a sound. The young man in the air and the dozen Grotto Heaven realm cultivators behind him were unmoved. They sneered and looked down at the Rakshasas with disdain. "This is too much." A Rakshasa lady couldn't take it anymore. She clenched her fists and stood up to confront the young man. This Rakshasa lady's cultivation wasn't high. She was only at Heaven Origin Stage 9. However, she couldn't stand the fact that the ancestor of the Rakshasa race was being insulted by an outsider. A Rakshasa true spirit knelt beside her. Sensing her movements, the Rakshasa was shocked. He hurriedly reached out and pressed down on her shoulder, pinning her to the ground. "Black Song, what are you doing?" The Rakshasa lady turned around and glared at him. "Silence!" The Black Song Rakshasa had a fearful look on his face. He carefully glanced at the 10+ figures in the air before secretly sending a voice transmission. "You, don't be rash. It's useless for you to charge out. You'll just be throwing your life away." The Rakshasa lady called Ayu still couldn't calm down. She said with hatred, "Are we just going to watch that bastard insult goddess Sunu?" The Black Song Rakshasa lady said, "What can we do? Can't you see that the kings of our race don't dare to act rashly?" "Why is that?" Ayu didn't understand. She said in a low voice, "We have hundreds of kings. If we join forces and fight to the death, how can we lose to these dozen people?" The Black Song Rakshasa lady said, "You haven't ascended for long. You don't know how powerful these people are. The heaven bestowment token on their waists isn't just an identity token. It's also a special weapon. They can use it at any time. They can use the sealing power of this world to form a whip. If they use their full strength, our kings won't be able to resist. We have many kings, but in their eyes, we're like fish on a chopping board." Ayu fell silent. The Black Song Rakshasa continued, "Moreover, even if we win, so what? This world is a prison. My race will never be able to escape for the rest of our lives. If we anger these people, who knows how many of our race will be implicated." Ayu sighed softly as a trace of sadness flashed across her eyes. At this moment, a Rakshasa king in the crowd. He stared at the young man in the air, 3 pairs of wings behind him, the Rakshasa lady. His 3 pairs of wings flapped. He roared. The Rakshasa race sovereign turned into a jet of black light and charged toward the young man in a flash. "And, lady, lord." The Rakshasa lady. He had no intention of making a move or even dodging. Behind him, a king of the celestial worship field took off the celestial worship badge from his waist. He activated his nascent spirit and pointed forward. In an instant, mysterious runes flickered in the sky and gathered on the mandate of heaven like lightning. They formed a long whip and lashed out at the black light in the air. But the Rakshasa king revealed himself and slammed heavily onto the ground. His body was split into two and fresh blood spewed everywhere. The Rakshasa race lord's body twitched in extreme pain. The king of celestial worship field sneered and waved celestial worship badge again. Another rune whip fell and landed on the Luo Sha king. But the two halves of the Rakshasa king's body were shattered into pieces, drowning in the blazing runes as his body and spirit were destroyed. The Rakshasas that had been noisy just now quietened down instantly. Countless Rakshasas looked at this scene with fear in their eyes. With just 2 lashes, a Rakshasa monarch was reduced to ashes. How could he resist such power? The group of Rakshasa race kings were not surprised by this. They even looked a little numb. They had seen too many scenes like this. They had seen it when they were still in the mystic, earth, and heaven origin stages. That kind of fear had been deeply embedded in their hearts. They were no longer hot-blooded, leaving only fear and cowardice in their bodies. Every once in a while, there would be Rakshasas that were brave and fearless enough to stand out and fight. However, what was the use? They were like moths to a flame. Is there anyone else who's indignant? The young man surveyed the surroundings and raised his brow with a smile. He even scratched the chest of the pure maiden stone statue on purpose. Initially, Ayu of the Rakshasa race was discouraged. However, when she saw that, her blood surged as she cursed, B****, let go of your claws. You don't. The Black Song Rakshasa wanted to stop her, but it was too late. He looked at the dozens of figures in midair in fear. A king of the celestial worship world sneered and was about to use the celestial worship badge to kill Ayu when the young man suddenly stopped him. The young man looked at Ayu, who stood gracefully in the crowd with a sinister glint in his eyes. He nodded repeatedly and praised, "Not bad, not bad. You have some charm." The young man's gaze looked as though he wanted to devour someone. At the end of the day, Ayu was still afraid and took half a step back instinctively. The young man strode over and arrived before Ayu. Looking down at her from above, he asked with a smile, "What's your name?" Against this incomparably strong young man who was far stronger than her, Ayu was extremely afraid. However, she grit her teeth and tried her best to suppress the fear in her heart without saying a word. "Very good. I like to see you angry and annoyed." The young man beckoned with his hand and smiled. "Come over and let me get closer to you." Ayu wanted to resist, but she realized that her body was out of her control. It was as though she was being pulled by an invisible force and flew towards the young man slowly. Despair filled Ayu's heart as a resolute look flashed through her beautiful eyes. She slit her wrist and a wisp of scarlet blood gushed out. At the same time, she channeled her essence spirit and chanted, "With my blood as the guide and my spirit as the medium, I shall head to the 9 underworlds and sacrifice to the Brahma, B****. When the young man saw how resolute Ayu was, he retracted his smile swiftly and cursed. Grabbing Ayu's neck, he threw her in reverse. Ayu slammed heavily against the stone statue of the maiden and fell onto the altar. She coughed out mouthfuls of blood and her face was pale. However, she did not stop chanting. Her voice was stuttering and her gaze was resolute. Fresh blood gushed towards the altar and spread up bit by bit along the runes on the altar. As her blood and spirit were drained continuously, Ayu's expression turned increasingly terrible and her aura weakened. This was a secret sacrificial technique of the Rakshasa race. With one's blood as the guide and spirit as the medium, they would pray for the descent of the legendary Rakshasa race of the 9 underworlds until they sacrificed their lives. Of course, there was a high chance of failure for such a sacrificial technique and one's life might be wasted. Furthermore, even if it succeeded, the Rakshasa race that was summoned would not have a cultivation realm higher than the person who made the sacrifice. "What's the use of a sacrificial secret technique before me?" The young man said coldly, "If anyone can truly descend here, I'll send them on their way and accompany you." Chapter 28-25. Sacrificial Sacrifice. Many Rakshasa true spirits and Rakshasa kings shook their heads and sighed. Just as the young man said, "So what if the sacrificial ritual succeeded? In the past, their people had tried countless times to sacrifice their lives to summon the strong cultivators from Joyo. However, they were always suppressed by the sealing power in this world. They could never break through to the immortal Emperor realm. Therefore, even if the Rakshasa kings sacrificed, the people they summoned were only at the Grotto Heaven realm. They still couldn't stop the people from the celestial realm. Even the Grotto Heaven kings couldn't do anything. Even if Ayu succeeded, what was the use of a Sky Origin Stage 9 clansman? It still couldn't change anything. It would just add another soul to the dead. Ayu was lying on her back on the cold altar, allowing the altar to devour her bloodline and soul. She didn't have much strength left in her body. Of course, she knew that the sacrificial ritual was useless. She just didn't want to be humiliated, even if she had to die. Ayu looked at the gray sky above her head. She was in a daze. Gradually, memories of the past appeared. She recalled some of the times in the lower realm. She saw her first meeting with that person in that quiet and peaceful town full of peach trees. It wasn't a happy experience. There, she lost her freedom and was forced to submit to him. However, for some reason, when she recalled the experience in the town, a faint smile appeared on her face. At first, she wasn't willing to accept it. Later, she started to feel conflicted. When she regained her freedom, she should have been happy. However, for some reason, she felt disappointed. It was also because of this relationship between the two of them that the Rakshasa race of the primordial 9 races was able to survive the final war of the 10,000 races. She witnessed that person's continuous growth and rise. In the end, he stood at the top of the world and made a name for himself. These scenes flashed before her eyes like a lantern before her death. In the end, it stopped on a black-haired, purple-robed figure. Until she was about to die, she realized that even though she had ascended for many years, she still hadn't forgotten that person deep in her heart. The altar beneath her seemed to be shining with blood-red light. Ayu's vision had already become somewhat blurry. In her hazy vision, there seemed to be a black-haired, purple-robed figure in front of her eyes. It gradually merged with the figure in her memory. It looked so real, yet so illusory. However, this purple-robed man was wearing a cold silver mask. Ayu didn't think too much about it. She just thought that it was an illusion. At this moment, the purple-robed man lowered his head slightly and looked over. Their eyes met. Ayu smiled. This purple-robed man's eyes were very similar to that person's. Ayu's chaotic mind flashed with confusion. Since this figure was an image from her memory, why would it lower its head and even look into her eyes? There seemed to be a trace of surprise in the purple-robed man's eyes. Yuluocha? The purple-robed man suddenly muttered. This voice, Ayu's eyes suddenly widened as she stared unblinkingly at the purple-robed man. Her face was filled with disbelief. How could this be? How could this be? But this voice was clearly his. Her mind was in a mess, and for a moment, she could not tell if this was a dream or reality. Or perhaps, she had already died and arrived in the netherworld? Right then, the purple-robed man bent over slightly and helped her up from the cold altar, saying softly, "Don't you recognize me?" Although his voice was soft, it was like a bolt of lightning in her ears. Before she could react, a massive life force surged into her body. Her initially severely injured body healed in the blink of an eye. Even the bloodline and spirit that she had lost just now was recovering rapidly. At the same time, Yuluocha gradually regained her consciousness and looked at the purple-robed man beside her in a daze. She looked into those deep and bright eyes in disbelief. She merely gripped the purple-robed man's arm tightly, not daring to let go. She was afraid that the purple-robed man before her would suddenly disappear if she let go. This scene caused quite a stir among the Rakshasa race as well. Even the hundreds of Rakshasa kings were dumbfounded and confused, let alone the low-level Rakshasas. What was going on? Did the sacrificial mystic technique succeed? However, Yuluocha was only halfway through the ritual and her blood had not completely soaked the entire altar. Logically speaking, it was impossible for her to summon anyone. Furthermore, she had summoned 2 people at once. Even if a Rakshasa king used the sacrificial mystic technique, it was impossible for him to summon 2 of his race members. What was even stranger was that these two were not from the Rakshasa race. The black-haired purple-robed man in front looked like a human. His body seemed to be shrouded in a layer of mist, and one could not tell his cultivation level. The person behind him was tall and wore a pitch-black cloak. The hood covered his face and one could not see his appearance. However, this person exuded a savage aura and was clearly not from the Rakshasa race. Right then, this person extended his greenish-black claws and took off the hood on his head, revealing a hideous face with fangs. It was frightening to look at. The Yaksha race. When this tall living being revealed his true appearance, many Rakshasa kings recognized him immediately and exclaimed. The Yaksha saw what was happening and suddenly grinned. His eyeballs popped out and his face looked even more hideous. The other Rakshasa kings scanned over with their spiritual minds and were shocked. This was not only a Yaksha, but also a king of the Yaksha race at the top of the cave heaven stage. The aura of this Yaksha king was even more horrible than theirs. Many Rakshasa clansmen were dumbfounded by what they saw. A Luosha woman at level 9 of Sky Origin stage had just used the sacrificial mystic technique and summoned two people when she was halfway through the ritual. One of them was a human and the other was a king of the Yaksha race. The young man frowned as he saw what was happening. He seemed to be surprised as well. Soon he looked normal again. He waved his hand and said blandly, "Kill them all." No matter how many people were summoned and what kind of races they were all like ants in his eyes. He did not even need to do anything to kill them. "Yes, master." A celestial bestowment realm king stood up and took off the celestial bestowment token from his waist. "Watch out." Seeing that, Luosha realized what was happening. She hurriedly shook the purple-robed man's arm and shouted to warn him. The purple-robed man seemed to be in a special state. He did not care about Luosha's warning. The king of the Yaksha race behind him had disappeared. Chapter 28-26. The king of the celestial realm had just taken down the celestial token and gathered the runes to form a whip when he realized that someone was missing from the altar. Where did the Yaksha go? The king of the celestial worship realm was slightly dazed, a hint of confusion flashing through his mind. Suddenly, the back of his neck seemed to have been blown by a breath of cold air, and he couldn't help but shiver. At the same time, a sinister voice rang in his ears. "Who do you want to kill?" "Oh no!" The king of the celestial worship world was shocked and his expression changed drastically. The king of the Yaksha race had already appeared behind him. The whole process was silent. One had to know that once one reached the grotto heaven realm, one would be able to sense the surrounding space with extreme sensitivity. They would be able to sense it immediately when someone used the teleportation technique. Furthermore, it was very easy for him to determine where the other party would land after teleporting. He never made the first move and seized the initiative. However, the Yaksha king had appeared beside him without him noticing at all. What kind of technique was that? Just as he was about to activate his primordial spirit, he felt a sharp pain in his head. The next moment, his consciousness sank into the abyss and he lost consciousness. The Yaksha king did not give the celestial realm king a chance to escape. He opened his mouth and bit off half of the celestial realm king's head. In an instant, the celestial realm king's head exploded and blood gushed out. The celestial realm king's primordial spirit was swallowed by the Yaksha king and he died on the spot. A grotto heaven realm powerhouse was bitten to death by the Yaksha behind him before he could even unleash a single move or two. The people of the celestial realm had seen countless killings, but they had never seen such a gory scene. The Yaksha chewed on half of the celestial realm king's head. His sharp fangs easily pierced through the skull and broke it. The sound of bones crunching could be heard. Fresh blood flowed down the corner of his mouth and through the gaps between his teeth. The Yaksha did not seem to notice it at all. He just grinned at them. It was too cruel. The Rakshasas exclaimed in shock. Rakshasas and Yakshas were of the same origin. They were ferocious by nature and ate human flesh. The Yakshas were even more cruel and bloodthirsty than the Rakshasas. This Yaksha king was the Void Yaksha who had followed Wu Dao back from the ghost realm. He had been imprisoned in the Bitter Spring prison for countless years, suffering all kinds of torture. As soon as he escaped, he was forcefully suppressed by Wu Dao's true body. During his trip to the underworld and the ghost realm, the experts he met were far stronger than him. He never had the chance to vent the anger in his heart. Now, they had just arrived in the medium-class realm, and this group of people didn't know what was good for them and wanted to kill them. This was exactly what the Yaksha Dread King wanted. He was just worried that he wouldn't have a chance to vent his anger. What's more, he had just followed his new master, so it was a good opportunity for him to show off his skills in front of Wu Dao's original body. The resentment and anger that had been suppressed for countless years erupted in an instant. How could that king of the celestial tribute world have a good ending? Just one death was not enough. He wanted to start a massacre. Insolent Yaksha, how dare you be so impudent in the sinful land of the 9 underworlds? Another Reverence World monarch reacted immediately. He took down the Reverence Order from his waist and gathered the runes to form a dazzling whip that lashed at Yasha Fear Monarch. The long whip was extremely fast and arrived in an instant. Yasha Fear Monarch suddenly laughed strangely. His tall figure shook slightly and suddenly split into two, pouncing at the Reverence World monarch. Double ghost door slapping. Although this Reverence World monarch had torn one of the ghostly figures into pieces, the other ghostly figure took advantage of the situation to close in. This Reverence World monarch's grotto heaven had just been released, but before it could form, it was torn in half by Yasha Fear Monarch's sharp, ghostly hands. A flickering small person wanted to escape this place. However, Yasha Fear Monarch was faster. He took a step forward and suddenly stuck out his scarlet tongue, curling it in the air. The Reverence World monarch's primordial spirit did not manage to escape. It was swallowed by Yasha Fear Monarch's tongue and died. In the blink of an eye, Yasha Fear Monarch had killed 2 Reverence World beings in a row. He was extremely ferocious and arrogant. Seeing this scene, the remaining 10 monarchs of the Reverence World realized how terrifying this Yasha monarch was. Boom, boom, boom. The 10 monarchs of the Reverence World did not hesitate to raise their grotto heavens. This way, they could at least ensure that they would not be killed instantly by this Yasha monarch. The Moon Tribe elder frowned slightly. He took a step forward and stood in front of the young man, protecting him behind him. Humph! Yasha Fear Monarch saw that the Moon Tribe elder was not to be trifled with, so he did not take the initiative to provoke him. Instead, he targeted the 2 weakest monarchs of the Reverence World. The 2 Reverence World monarchs had only raised their grotto heavens. They could not withstand his attack at all. Yasha Fear Monarch also raised his own grotto heaven. It was pitch black and eerie inside. Waves of ghostly wails and howls could be heard. Then, his body flashed and he suddenly disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, Yasha Fear Monarch was already in front of the 2 ordinary monarchs. How is this possible? Seeing this, the monarchs of the Reverence World narrowed their eyes and felt a chill in their hearts. Now that they were in the middle of a battle, the surrounding void had been locked down by their grotto heavens. It was impossible for anyone to teleport away through the void. This thought only flashed through their minds for a moment. The monarchs of the Reverence World did not have time to think. They took out the Reverence Orders in their hands and formed whips. They weaved together to form an inescapable net that enveloped Yasha Fear Monarch. If Yasha Fear Monarch wanted to avoid these runic whips, he would have to give up on the 2 ordinary monarchs in front of him. He had not seen blood for too many years. He was thirsty for blood. In a flash, Yasha Fear Monarch's eyes flashed fiercely. He forcefully raised his grotto heaven and attacked, instantly shattering the 2 grotto heavens of the 2 Reverence World monarchs. The next moment, he took a step forward and reached out his giant ghostly hand, smashing the heads of the 2 ordinary monarchs into pieces. At this moment, 3 runic whips landed on his grotto heaven at almost the same time. Boom! Accompanied by a loud explosion. His perfect grotto heaven couldn't withstand it and collapsed with a loud bang. It turned into countless fragments and dissipated into the world. Without the protection of his grotto heaven, the 4th runic whip landed on his body. Roar! Yasha Fear Monarch screamed, his expression pained and filled with fear. This whip left a huge wound on his back that was so deep that his bones could be seen. It was a shocking sight and almost split his body in half. This Yasha Fear Monarch sucked in a breath of cold air and did not dare to be careless. His ferocious aura instantly disappeared as he covered his head and fled, barely avoiding the remaining whips. He was in a sorry state. What whip is this? It's so powerful. Yasha Fear Monarch cursed in his heart. Normally, with the combat strength of the Reverence World Monarchs behind him, even if they worked together, they would not be able to threaten him. However, his grotto heaven could not withstand 3 whips and shattered on the spot. Chapter 28-27. The young man didn't make a move at all. He looked relaxed as if he was watching a show. The Moon Tribe elder in front of him frowned as he stared at Yaksha Fear King. No one knew what he was thinking. Even if those two didn't make a move, Yaksha Fear King was still under great pressure. He had killed 4 kings in a row, but there were still 8 kings left with rune whips and grotto heavens. They had already surrounded him. As one of the most special members of the Yaksha clan, he was known as the Void Yaksha because he possessed an extremely powerful innate talent. He could travel through the void in the sky and the earth. Therefore, he was able to sneak up on the first king of the celestial realm he killed. Even if his surroundings were locked down by the grotto heavens of the other kings and he couldn't teleport, he could still escape with his grotto heaven. But now, his perfect grotto heaven was shattered. He couldn't reform it in a short time. Even if he had the talent to travel through space, he couldn't break through the 8 grotto heavens. Not to mention, there were also 8 blazing and terrifying rune whips that interweaved into an inescapable net in midair. Together with the 8 powerful grotto heavens, it was practically airtight and impenetrable. Yaksha Fear King could only circulate his blood and rely on the Void Yaksha's talent to move around. However, the 8 kings from the Sky Worship World cooperated well and started to close in on him. This left less and less space for Yaksha Fear King to dodge. The situation was getting worse. At this moment, the old man from the Moon Tribe seemed to have thought of something. A trace of understanding flashed through his eyes as he said, "I know. This Yaksha is a variant of the Yaksha ghosts, the Void Yaksha. It's said that this kind of Yaksha is very rare. They are born with divine strength and can travel through the void." "I see." The young man rolled his eyes and suddenly said, "Go easy on him. Don't take his life. Just subdue him. I still lack a suitable servant. This Void Yaksha is good." "Understood." The 8 kings from the Sky Worship World answered. The rune whips dimmed a lot, but their attacks were still sharp. They kept reducing Yaksha Fear King's space. It didn't take long for the Yasha Fearful King to realize that he couldn't dodge anymore. He let out a low roar and unleashed his bloodline phenomenon. However, this bloodline phenomenon could not withstand the impact of the rune whip and was shattered in the blink of an eye. But the rune whip landed on the Yasha Fear King's body again. His skin split open and a bloody wound appeared. The power of this whip was clearly restrained. But even so, when the whip hit his body, he still felt a sharp pain. Put, put, put. The rune whip came crashing down, and every time it struck, a large amount of blood would splash out. In the blink of an eye, Yasha's body was covered in wounds. Even so, the Yasha King of Fear did not make a sound. He endured the pain and glared at the 8 kings of the celestial realm. He wanted nothing more than to skin them alive. The torture he had suffered in the Bitter Spring prison was far worse than this. As long as he could keep his life, this was nothing. Out of the 8 rune whips, 4 of them bound Yasha King's limbs, 3 of them wrapped around his waist, and 1 of them locked onto his neck. Sizzle! The power of the mysterious runes was constantly activated, tearing open Yasha King's skin and leaving large wounds on his body. "Kneel down and submit." A king of the celestial realm shouted and used the rune whip to grab Yasha King's neck, trying to make him lower his head. Yasha King was not afraid at all. He stood with his head held high and a fierce glint in his eyes. He ground his teeth and made a series of creaking sounds. He had been imprisoned in the Bitter Spring prison for many years and had never submitted. Even after being rescued by Wu Dao's main body and regaining his freedom, he did not submit. Even though he had been suppressed by Wu Dao's main body and was completely convinced, he was not willing to follow Wu Dao's main body at first, let alone these people in front of him. Any one of the 8 kings of the celestial realm would not be his match. Even if they worked together, they would not be able to trap him. It was only because these 8 kings relied on the rune whips formed by the celestial order that they could unleash such terrifying power. The Moon Tribe elder's eyes were dark as he slowly said, "Yasha, I advise you to take care of yourself. We're giving you a chance to live. Don't be ungrateful." Roar. Yasha King could not listen to this. He was furious and roared in the direction of the Moon Tribe elder. The Moon Tribe elder's face sank. He looked at the young man beside him and frowned. "Young master, what do you think?" The young man did not speak and seemed to be hesitating. At this moment, Wu Dao's main body on the altar seemed to have returned. His eyes regained clarity and he let out a sigh. He did not intend to stand by and do nothing. After arriving here, he could sense the existence of Qinglian's main body again. At the same time, Qinglian's main body also sensed something. The 2 main bodies had finally reconnected. This also meant that Wu Dao's main body had returned to the middle world. Qinglian's main body quickly sent over what had happened in the past few years, some secrets, some speculations, and information about the celestial realm. Wu Dao's main body also sent back the various situations he had encountered after entering the ghost realm. Just now, his mind was wandering because the 2 main bodies were communicating with each other. "So, it's already been 2,000 years, Wu Dao's main body murmured softly. He and Yasha King were wandering in the reincarnation cycle and could not sense the passage of time. He could only vaguely guess that 2,000 years had passed. It was only when he reconnected with Qinglian's main body that he was able to confirm this. The exchange of information between the 2 main bodies was a huge gain for both of them. In this exchange of information, many doubts and mysteries were gradually unraveled, revealing the truth. Celestial Realm, 10 Great Sins. Wu Dao's main body looked at the surrounding environment and seemed to have understood something. When he first arrived, he felt that this place was somewhat special. Although it was a middle world, it seemed to be a space of its own with unique rules and restrictions. Looking at the endless Rakshasas kneeling on the ground, he was even more surprised. After receiving the information about the celestial realm from Qinglian's main body, he corresponded with the scene in front of him and gradually guessed the answer. If he was not wrong, this world should be one of the 10 great sins of the celestial realm. Those Grotto Heaven Realm powerhouses with the Celestial Realm token on their waists were naturally from the Celestial Realm. The young man and the old man's tokens were obviously different from the people of the Celestial Realm. They seemed to have a higher status. Where did they come from? Of course, Wu Dao's main body had a lot of doubts in his heart. Yu Luocha beside him might be able to give him an answer. But now was obviously not the time to ask. Chapter 28-28. The gaze of Wu Dao's true body landed on the 8 kings of the celestial tribute world not far away. To begin with, he was somewhat against the actions of the celestial tribute world. Furthermore, the other party wanted to kill him right from the start. Wu Dao's true body did not say anything and soared into the air with Yu Luosha. In the blink of an eye, he arrived on the battlefield and punched the grotto heaven of a celestial tribute world king. Bang! Accompanied by a deafening bang, the world seemed to have gone silent. The entire battlefield paused for a moment. The next moment, the grotto heaven collapsed. Right in front of countless gazes, the body of the celestial tribute world king exploded into a blood mist and his body and spirit were destroyed. The vast heaven and earth suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Not a single sound could be heard. Many Rakshasa race beings widened their eyes in disbelief. A peerless king with a grotto heaven was destroyed by this mysterious purple-robed man with a silver mask bare-handed. Even with the protection of the grotto heaven, he could not withstand that punch. What sort of power was that? Although that scene was not as bloody and savage as the Yakshafir king biting off half of a king's head, it had an even greater impact on everyone. Wu Dao's purgatory and essence martial grotto heaven were cultivated to greater mastery. Even if Wu Dao's true body did not release his martial domain and grotto heaven, His punch could reach the power of a quasi-emperor with just his physical body and bloodline. If he released Wu Dao's purgatory, he could even suppress and refine a quasi-emperor expert completely. Against that peerless king earlier on, Wu Dao's true body could crush him with a single finger. Yu Luosha was both surprised and delighted when she saw that. As though she thought of something, she said hurriedly, "The runic whips formed by the celestial tribute world are extremely powerful. You've got to be careful and ignore me. I'll be a burden to you." By the end of her sentence, her voice had already turned weak. Wu Dao's true body brought her with him. After all, it was inconvenient for him to move as he could not unleash his full strength. She was afraid that she would be a burden. Not necessarily, Wu Dao's original body replied indifferently. He didn't let go of Yu Luosha and walked towards the remaining 7 kings of the celestial tribute world. He brought Yu Luosha with him without any other thoughts. He just didn't want Yu Luosha to be in danger. No matter what, Yu Luosha was an old friend of his from Heaven Wasteland region, and now that they had reunited in the Sind land, Yu Luosha would definitely know a lot of things. The young man and the old man didn't make a move. If he tossed Yu Luosha aside, it would instead be easy for others to take advantage of. The remaining 7 kings of the celestial worship realm reacted immediately. They still had to control Yasha Fear King, so they couldn't just turn around and deal with Wu Dao's main body. After a quick discussion, 3 kings were sent to deal with Wu Dao's main body. Among the 3 kings of the sky worship world, 2 of them were peak kings with perfected grotto heavens. The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world did the same and summoned their celestial tokens. Circulating their blood chi and essence spirits, they released their full strength and whipped their rune whips towards Wu Dao's main body. With a calm gaze, Wu Dao's main body reached out unhurriedly towards the 3 rune whips. "You must have a death wish." The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world sneered with a vicious glint in their eyes. Their celestial tokens were specially refined numinous treasures that could mobilize the power of the seals of heaven and earth to suppress the living beings here. It wasn't something a physical body could deal with. Wu Dao's main body scooped out in midair and grabbed the 3 rune whips instantly, squeezing them tightly. A series of crackling sounds came from his palm. The originally blazing and resplendent runes seemed to be unable to withstand the power of his palm, and their light quickly dimmed. The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world were shocked. How was that possible? Before they could react, Wu Dao's main body grabbed the 3 rune whips and pulled them in his direction. The 3 kings felt an irresistible force pulling them towards Wu Dao's main body. The 3 of them staggered and could not stop at all. By the time the 3 kings wanted to let go of their celestial tokens and retreat, it was already too late. At the same time that Wu Dao's main body pulled the rune whips, he closed in on the 3 kings rapidly. Almost instantly, both sides met. Wu Dao's main body held onto Yu Luosha with one hand and let go of the rune whips with the other. Suddenly, he clenched his fists and punched 3 times in the direction of the 3 kings. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 punches collided with the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world and let out 3 dull sounds. It was as though the 3 punches had collided with 3 gigantic ancient bells. The next moment, cracks appeared on the 3 grottos and they shattered. The bodies of the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world were smashed into a bloody mist by Wu Dao's main body. In just 3 punches, the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world, including the 2 pinnacle kings, were all smashed into smithereens. Even the perfected grottos could not withstand one punch from Wu Dao's main body. The strange thing was that the primordial spirits of the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world did not die. They were still trying to escape from the battlefield in the bloody mist. However, Wu Dao's main body seemed to have been prepared. After the 3 punches, he waved his sleeves and kept the 3 primordial spirits in his sleeves. Such strong control. The Moon Tribe elder said softly with narrowed eyes. Even the perfected grottos and kings' bodies could not withstand the power of one punch. The relatively weak primordial spirits could not withstand such destructive power. However, there was only one possibility for the 3 primordial spirits to survive. This purple-robed man's control of power had reached the pinnacle of the thoroughly meticulous state. He could destroy the grotto's bodies without harming the primordial spirits. Wu Dao's main body did not leave the primordial spirits of the three kings of the celestial tribute world because he was merciful. He wanted to use the soul-searching technique to obtain more secrets about the celestial tribute world from the three kings of the celestial tribute world. In the blink of an eye, only 4 of the 8 kings of the celestial tribute world were left. The 4 kings of Fear Yaksha, who were still trying to suppress their anger with their rune whips, turned pale when they saw just now. It turned out that the 2 people that Rakshasa girl had just summoned were the real ruthless ones, and they were the purple-robed man in front of him. Even the celestial order, which they relied on the most, could not harm this person. Who could stop this person? The 2 kings of the celestial tribute world showed a trace of fear. Wu Dao's main body walked toward them. An unimaginable pressure surged toward them, causing their hearts to tremble. The 2 kings could not take it anymore. Without thinking, they poured their primordial spirits into the celestial order, and the runes on it shone brightly. A ripple appeared in the surrounding void. This trace of spatial fluctuation couldn't escape the senses of the Yasha king of fear. They want to escape. The Yaksha king of fear's bulging eyes flashed with savagery. He licked his lips and sneered. 2 of the remaining 4 kings of the celestial tribute world wanted to escape, but the remaining 2 kings could not suppress Yaksha at all. Chapter 28-29. Wu Dao's senses were sharp. He immediately sensed that the 2 kings of the skyward realm were trying to escape. His expression was calm. He did not even move to chase after them. Instead, he lightly stomped his foot in the air. The space around them began to collapse as huge cracks appeared, extending toward the 2 emperors and colliding with their heavenly abodes. Boom! Boom! The 2 kings' abodes trembled and were on the verge of collapse. The space tunnel that the skyward realm order had just formed was also shattered by Wu Dao's true body. They could not escape immediately. His control over space had reached the peak. At the same time, Wu Dao's true body flicked his finger. 2 fingernail-sized red flames flew out and landed on the 2 kings' abodes in the blink of an eye. They only paused for a moment, but the 2 red flames burned 2 small holes in the 2 kings' abodes. The 2 kings were shocked. At the same time, they suddenly felt a burning pain in their bodies. Their internal organs, meridians, and every inch of their flesh felt like they were being burned by the flames. Ah! The 2 kings opened their mouths and let out a scream. As they screamed, bright red flames spewed out of their mouths and noses. In the blink of an eye, their flesh was burned open. These scarlet wounds appeared on the surface of their bodies in the shape of strange lotuses. Red lotus hellfire? The Moon Tribe elder frowned. He recognized the origin of this flame. Wu Dao's true body had cultivated to the greater success of the martial domain realm. The power of the red lotus hellfire had also increased greatly. Moreover, Wu Dao's true body had activated the red lotus hellfire with his nether chi. The flames were even more ferocious. Even the kings of the caves could not resist them. The Moon Tribe elder no longer wanted to stay out of the matter. He snorted and suddenly waved his sleeves. A sinister and cold aura instantly descended and enveloped the 2 kings of the skyward realm. This sinister and cold aura was extremely strong. In a few breaths, the red lotus hellfire on the 2 kings of the skyward realm was extinguished. This was the power of a quasi-emperor. After Wu Dao's main body arrived here, he noticed this old man. Although the Moon Tribe elder had removed the karmic fire of the red lotus from the 2 kings of the celestial realm, he hadn't been able to save them. The chilly fiendish chi and the red lotus hellfire, one hot and the other cold. The 2 kings of the celestial realm had just been burned by the karmic fire of the red lotus, and their body temperature had reached its peak. Now, they were suddenly enveloped by a wave of baleful aura. The 2 extremes of heat and cold collided in their bodies, and the 2 celestial realm kings couldn't withstand it and died on the spot. Seeing this, the Moon Tribe elder's expression turned ugly. On the other side, the Yaksha Fear King had also broken free from the rune whip. His ferocious nature erupted as he relied on the innate ability of the Void Yaksha lineage to chase after the remaining two kings of the celestial tribute world. The Moon Tribe Elder stared at Wu Dao's main body. Just as he was about to attack, the young man beside him suddenly stopped him. This person has some tricks up his sleeve. I'll give him a chance. Then, the young man looked at Wu Dao's main body and said slowly, "You killed the people of the celestial tribute world, which is tantamount to a great disaster. Only I can save your life." Wu Dao's main body's gaze was calm as he asked indifferently, "And where are you from?" "You don't need to know," the young man said proudly. The young man said proudly, "All you need to know is that all living beings in your medium-class world. Listen carefully, it's all living beings and races. In my eyes, they're all ants. I'm letting you follow me because I'm giving you a chance to live. It's also a chance to reach the heavens in a single step. You must know how to be grateful." When the young man finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body said, "You don't understand the situation." After pausing for a while, Wu Dao's main body looked up. His eyes flashed as two balls of purple flames lit up in his deep eye sockets. He said slowly, "In this place, I have the final say on who's an ant." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body had already charged toward the young man. "Young master, be careful." The Moon Tribe Elder reacted extremely quickly. He let out a low shout and stood in front of the young man. Facing the menacing Wu Dao's main body, the Moon Tribe Elder did not dare to be careless. He immediately held up the Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven and activated his bloodline to the extreme. The Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven already contained a trace of the world's power. It was definitely not something a Peak King's Grotto Heaven could withstand. Wu Dao's main body did not dodge. His blood surged, and his entire body was like a huge furnace that was burning red. He raised his hand and punched out. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled. Although they were separated by the Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven, the Moon Tribe Elder was still shaken by Wu Dao's main body's punch. His blood surged and his bones creaked. So powerful! It was only now that the Moon Tribe Elder realized how terrifying Wu Dao's main body was. His face was filled with shock. He frantically activated his primordial spirit and did not even care about burning his lifespan. The Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven spewed out a huge amount of pure Yin energy. The old man from the Moon Tribe roared. This kind of Yin energy was extremely cold and extremely powerful. Even if only a trace of it entered the body, it would cause great harm to living beings. The Moon Tribe Elder held up the Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven and blocked Wu Dao's main body's fist. At the same time, the Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven took out his own Grotto Heaven spiritual treasure. It was a cold wine flask surrounded by Yin energy. It seemed to be filled with wine. The moment it was taken out, the sound of water splashing could be heard from the wine flask. This wine flask contained countless amounts of Yin energy. After accumulating for a long time, it finally underwent a qualitative change and evolved into extreme Yin water. The Moon Tribe Elder had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years and only managed to condense this small flask. Just a drop of it could threaten the life of a Subthiarch expert. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath. He could not help but raise his eyebrows when he smelled the water vapor coming from the wine flask. The extreme Yin water in the wine flask was only infinitely close to the Yin spring, one of the 9 springs of hell. Its purity could not even be compared to the Yin spring of hell. The Moon Tribe Elders seemed to have noticed the disdain in Wu Dao's main body's eyes. He was enraged and said coldly, "Ant, I'll let you have a taste of the power of this extreme Yin water today." He saw that Wu Dao's main body was holding Yu Luosha's hand with one hand and blocking the Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven with the other. This attack was absolutely foolproof. Wu Dao's main body maintained his current posture. He did not let go of Yu Luosha's hand or withdraw his fist. Instead, he took a deep breath. Just as the Moon Tribe Elder made his move, Wu Dao's main body suddenly opened his mouth. A ball of dark green flame gushed out from the depths of his throat. This ball of flame was only as thick as a baby's arm when it gushed out from Wu Dao's main body's mouth. However, when it entered the Subthiarka's Grotto Heaven, It seemed to be stimulated by something and the fire surged. The extreme een water in the wine flask had just poured out when it met the dark green flame. This flame instantly transformed into a giant fire dragon and entered the wine flask along with the extreme een water. Then, under the Moon Tribe Elder's horrified gaze, the wine flask suddenly exploded. The Netherworld ghost flame was born in the 9 underworlds abyss, a place of extreme een. The een energy of the Moon Tribe and the extreme een water were like fuel for the flame, causing the Netherworld ghost flame's power to surge. Chapter 2830. This change was completely out of the Moon Tribe Elder's expectations. His physique was special, and he was a boundary emperor. Coupled with the extreme een grotto heaven and the extreme een water in his wine pot, not many boundary emperors of the same level would dare to fight him head-on. However, he had never thought that the power he relied on the most would bring trouble to himself. The wine pot exploded, and countless fragments flew everywhere. The Moon Tribe Elder was the first to bear the brunt. He had no time to dodge at all. In an instant, countless fragments of the Netherworld ghost flame entered his body. The old man of the Moon Tribe groaned in pain. His face was pained. His body was riddled with holes, revealing countless bloody holes. Each bloody hole was burning with the Netherworld ghost flame. What was more terrifying was that these flames were burning his flesh. His body was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. The white bones inside were faintly visible. Even his boundary emperor grotto heaven had been burned dry. The Netherworld ghost flame spewed out from the cracks. From afar, it looked like a single green eye. The Moon Tribe Elder could not suppress the Netherworld ghost flame at all. The fire burned even more fiercely. He could not hold on for long. "Young master, leave quickly." The old man of the Moon Tribe used the last of his strength to roar in the Netherworld ghost flame. On the other side, the young man was a little scared when he saw this scene. Ever since he was young, he had lived in a comfortable environment and was surrounded by many people. When had he ever encountered a situation like this? When had he ever encountered such danger? Moreover, the process of the two sides fighting was too fast. In just one clash, the purple-robed man spat out a flame and the Moon Tribe Elder was defeated. He did not have much time to react at all. Hearing the Moon Tribe Elder's warning, the young man finally reacted. In a panic, he slapped his storage bag and took out a teleportation talisman. At this moment, the purple-robed man and Rakshasa passed through the raging fire. They were unharmed and walked toward him. They seemed to be moving slowly, but in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of him. A powerful and majestic intent enveloped him. In the next moment, the young man felt the pressure on him increase. His chest tightened, and his mind trembled. The young man could not move. The teleportation talisman was in his hand, but he could not tear it apart. "You can't kill me." The young man's face was pale and his voice trembled as he said, My identity is something you can only look up to. You can't afford to offend me." "Look up?" Wu Dao's main body had an indifferent expression. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the top of the young man's head. Then he pressed down forcefully. Plop. The young man couldn't take it anymore. He knelt on the ground and his knees shattered. The young man let out a blood-curdling scream. A fine layer of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his body trembled slightly. The young man raised his head and glared at Wu Dao's main body. His eyes were filled with resentment as he said coldly, "Fine, this king will lay his cards on the table with you. Listen well, I am from the heavenly court. If you dare to harm my life, you will suffer the wrath of the heavenly court. You, your clansmen, and everyone related to you will die without a grave." Heavenly court? Wu Dao narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he had a premonition that he might be close to the deepest secrets of the middle world. Given the young man's threat, there was no way Wu Dao's main body would let him live. With a cold expression, Wu Dao's main body grabbed the young man's head and trapped his essence spirit in his palm instantly. At the same time, he executed a soul-searching secret skill. Right then, a sudden change happened. Suddenly, A scorching power burst forth from the young man's essence spirit and surged towards the palm of Wu Dao's main body. In fact, it even wanted to surge into his body through his palm. Wu Dao's main body felt a sharp pain in his palm. Wu Dao's main body frowned. Given his current cultivation realm, a power that could cause his body to feel pain had to be at least at the level of a quasi-emperor or even higher. Wu Dao's main body did not dare to be careless and hurriedly channeled his blood qi. A gigantic furnace appeared around him. Both parties were in a stalemate for a moment before the scorching power dissipated gradually. Wu Dao's main body opened his palm to take a look. There was a strange rune imprinted on his palm that was identical to the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra and Hell of the Nine Springs. It was the word flame. Wu Dao's main body tried to circulate his blood qi or form the Wu Dao purgatory to erase the imprint on his palm, but to no avail. That method should have been left behind by the expert behind the young man. Wu Dao's main body was expressionless and put the matter aside for the time being. The essence spirit of the young man had long turned into ashes and died after being burned by the Wu Dao furnace just now. What a pity, Wu Dao's main body lamented internally. That young man definitely knew many secrets. Unfortunately, he did not succeed in soul-searching. Wu Dao's main body took out the essence spirits of the 3 celestial world cultivators that he had just captured and executed a soul-searching technique on them. However, as soon as the soul-searching technique was released, the 3 essence spirits seemed to have been stimulated and exploded. Their essence spirits were destroyed. Wu Dao's main body was not surprised by this result. There must be some kind of restriction imprint on the 3 celestial world cultivators' bodies to prevent others from soul-searching and finding out the secrets of the celestial world. Even if he did not use the soul-searching technique, he would not be able to find anything useful from their mouths. Not far away, the Moon Tribe elder had been burned until only a skeleton was left. There was no flesh on his body at all. Even his essence spirit had been burned to ashes. On the other side, the Yasha Fear King who had just escaped had already killed the remaining 2 kings of the celestial worship world, tearing them into pieces. It was a tragic sight. At this point in the battle, more than a dozen celestial world cultivators, including 2 from the heavenly court, had died. Many Rakshasas looked at the bloody battlefield with their mouths agape and their faces full of shock. The 2 people that Yu Luosha had summoned with her sacrifice were so terrifying. One of them seemed to be an old acquaintance of Yu Luosha's. He had brought her with him. With just one hand he had swept through everything. No one could defeat him. Even the Boundary Emperor who had come from the sky was burned to death by his flames. Wu Dao's main body waved his sleeves and gathered the grotto heaven fragments that he had just destroyed in front of him. At the same time, he opened his mouth and took in a deep breath. The grotto heaven fragments were swallowed by Wu Dao's main body like food. The Rakshas's kings were dumbfounded. He could do that? One had to know that each grotto heaven fragment contained the will and Tao of a king. If one wanted to refine the Tao of a grotto heaven fragment, they would have to digest and absorb it bit by bit. If they devoured the grotto heaven fragments like Wu Dao's main body, their physical body would have exploded long ago. Wu Dao's main body's expression was normal. His physical body was the origin martial grotto heaven. The grotto heaven fragments of a dozen kings were nothing to the origin martial grotto heaven. Of course, that was not all he gained from this battle. Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and collected the storage bags of the celestial world cultivators, the Boundary Emperor, and the young man. There were many treasures in the storage bags of the celestial world cultivators. However, Wu Dao's main body did not care about them. There were a few rare treasures in the storage bags of the Boundary Emperor and the young man, however. Thank you for the 10,000 book coins tip. Speaking of which, it's almost the new year. Can I make a small update openly? End of chapter. Chapter 2831. Master, it's all settled. The Yaksha Fear King returned to the side of Wu Dao's true body and said excitedly. Although he was heavily injured in this battle, he was able to kill to his heart's content and was extremely happy. Master, right then Yu Luosha called out softly. Wu Dao's true body let go of her and waved it off. You've already regained your freedom in the lower realm. There's no need to address me as such. Yulusha's eyes dimmed and she lowered her head slightly. Thereafter, she mustered her courage and said, I don't know how to address you either. It's just that you're more used to it, master. Although my cultivation realm is slightly low, I can still do some miscellaneous tasks. Back when they first met in Pingyang town, although she was defeated by Wu Dao's true body, their cultivation realms were not far apart. Although she chose to submit to Wu Dao's true body back then, it was only because of the situation that she was unwilling and indignant. But now, Wu Dao's true body was already standing at a height that she could only look up to. The difference between the two of them was too great. Even if she took the initiative to submit, this person before her might not agree. Thankfully, Wu Dao's true body did not say anything. That caused her to feel some anticipation. Naturally, Wu Dao's true body did not know about Yu Luosha's complicated feelings. He did not take it to heart. It was just a form of address, and he would let her be. Of course, in his opinion, Yu Luosha's cultivation realm was not low. It was already rare for her to be able to cultivate to this point after ascending. She should be around the same level as Yen Beichen, Demoness Ji and the others. Wu Dao's true body's gaze shifted and landed on the stone woman beside the altar. His eyes lit up as he murmured softly, 9 Netherworld Emperor? That stone statue was identical to the white-robed woman he encountered when he was undergoing the 10th level true martial heavenly tribulation. He found out from Demoness Ji that the white-robed woman he saw during the tribulation transcendence was the legendary 9 Netherworld Emperor. Why is the stone statue of the 9 Netherworld Emperor here? Wu Dao's true body asked. Yu Luosha explained, Goddess Pure Maiden is the ancestor of the Rakshasa race. Our clansmen pray for her every day. Wu Dao's main body suddenly thought of something and asked, 9 Abyss Emperor is a Rakshasa? Of course. Yu Luocha nodded and said, Legend has it that Goddess Su Nu led her clansmen out of the abyss of the ghost realm and came to the middle world. Under the leadership of Goddess Su Nu, the Rakshasa race rose to power and created the 9 Nether realm. In the end, they created a glorious era of the 9 Nether. After pausing for a while, Yu Luocha sighed softly and said, Unfortunately, Empress Su Nu defied the heavens and attacked the Tao. In the end, she was defeated and died. The 9 Nether world was destroyed, and her clansmen became sinful spirits for generations to come. They were imprisoned here, and this is the 9 Nether sinful grounds. In the mind of Wu Dao's main body, countless pieces of information and clues quickly converged, gradually clearing the fog. The question that had been lingering in his heart finally had an answer at this moment. When he first heard about the 9 Underworld's abyss when he first entered the ghost realm, he had a thought. He wondered if the 9 Underworld's abyss had anything to do with the 9 Underworld's Emperor. When he saw the 9 Underworld's Emperor during his tribulation, he subconsciously thought that he was a human. But in reality, there was almost no difference in appearance between a Rakshasa woman and a human woman. Now, according to the legend that Yu Luocha mentioned, he was almost certain that the 9 Underworld's Emperor was born in the ghost realm. But he didn't know how the 9 Underworld's Emperor was related to the ghost realm's Brahma ghost mother. According to the Yaksha king, the Brahma ghost mother was the one who created the Yaksha and Rakshasa races. Then, the 9 Underworld's Emperor should be under the Brahma ghost mother. Goddess Su Nu? At this moment, the Yaksha king muttered softly, as if he had thought of something. Wu Dao's main body asked, You've heard of her? The Yaksha king pondered and said, In the history of the ghost realm, there was indeed a plain Rakshasa. She was the leader of the Rakshasa ghost realm's 10 Rakshasa maidens. Wu Dao's main body fell into deep thought. The 10 Rakshasa maidens were the 10 imperial emperors who ruled the Rakshasa ghost realm. He had met one of them in the 9 Underworld's abyss. The plain Rakshasa was known as the leader of the 10 Rakshasa maidens. Needless to say, she was strong. However, Wu Dao's main body guessed that the plain Rakshasa in the ghost realm hadn't become a great emperor. The Skywolf once said that there was only one great emperor in an era. The ancient books passed down in the middle world did indeed record that a great emperor could create a prosperous era. There was no record of 2 great emperors existing at the same time. Wu Dao's main body didn't know the reason, but he believed that it was true. However, when he entered hell, he passed through the netherworld, fell into the cycle of reincarnation, and entered the ghost realm. There, he saw countless clues left behind by ancient eras. These clues showed that there was more than one great emperor in some of the ancient eras. In fact, the two didn't conflict. For example, during the Avicii era, other than the Avicii great emperor, the Lord of Hell was most likely a great emperor. According to the Yaksha king, the Lord of Hell at the same time, the Brahma ghost mother, was also a great emperor. And these great emperors were in independent realms and didn't interfere with each other. In other words, there could only be one great emperor in a middle world. And as an independent realm, hell could only give birth to one great emperor. It was the same for the ghost realm and hell. In some ancient eras, there might be several great emperors existing at the same time, but in reality, they didn't become great emperors in the same realm. For a middle world, there was only one great emperor in an era. However, outside of the middle world, like the hell world, the ghost world, and the underworld, there were other great emperors. In the ghost realm, the Brahma ghost mother had already entered. If the Su-Nu Rakshasa wanted to become a great emperor, she could only leave and go to a middle world. This was the origin of the legend that you Rakshasas spoke of. Of course, there were other doubts. The Nine Abyss Great Emperor was already the lord of a middle world. What Tao did she want to go against? If the Brahma ghost mother was included, there were two great emperors in the ghost realm. When the Nine Abyss Great Emperor went against the heavens, what role did the Brahma ghost mother play? If the two great emperors joined forces, who in the upper world could defeat them? What did this have to do with the turmoil that swept through the 3,000 realms? Was the Devil Lord involved? The Brahma ghost mother also had many secrets. The lifespan of a great emperor wasn't endless. There was a limit. Even the longevity great emperor only had a lifespan of 20 million. If the Brahma ghost mother was a great emperor, then how many eras had she lived? Just from the Nine Abyss era until now, who knew how many billions of years had passed? Defying the heavens, honoring the heavens, the heavenly court, Wu Dao's true body muttered to himself, seeming to have understood something. May I ask where the two of you came from? How did you come to this Nine Abyss sinful land? A Rakshasa king bowed in the direction of Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king and couldn't help but ask. Although it was you Rakshasa who used the sacrificial mystic technique first, Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king had arrived before her sacrificial mystic technique was completed. There must be another reason. The ghost realm. Yaksha king grinned at him and said, Lord Ghost Mother personally sent the great emperor here with me. The ghost realm. When the Rakshasa heard that, their hearts skipped a beat. They looked at Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king excitedly. Their expressions were so respectful that they almost knelt down to worship them. Chapter 28:32. Many Rakshasas knew that their ancestor, the Su-Nu Rakshasa, had once led countless clansmen out of the legendary abyss of the ghost realm. However, they had been imprisoned here from the moment they were born and had never been to the ghost realm. They did not even know if the ghost realm really existed. But now, two envoys of the ghost realm had descended before them. The two envoys of the ghost realm came from the same place as the Su-Nu Rakshasa. Furthermore, both of them were so powerful. Did this mean that they had a chance to escape from this place? Many Rakshasas looked at Wu Dao's true body and the Yaksha fear king. Apart from their respectful expressions, there was also a hint of anticipation in their eyes. How much do you know about the heavenly courts? Wu Dao's true body looked at the Rakshasa kings not far away and asked in a deep voice. All the Rakshasa kings shook their heads with a confused look on their faces. What about the celestial tribute world? Wu Dao's true body asked again. A Rakshasa king's expression changed as he stood out and said, Every once in a while, someone from the celestial tribute world will come to our race to choose tributes. Tributes? Wu Dao's true body's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have thought of something as he compared it to the memories from Qinglian's true body. Yu Luocha explained, it's to pick out a portion of the true spirit realm experts from their clansmen as tributes and throw them into a purgatory battlefield. They'll be constantly attacked by other living beings and races. Wu Dao's true body was silent. If he was not wrong, the purgatory battlefield that Yu Luocha mentioned was the fiend battlefield of the celestial tribute world. The true spirits in the fiend battlefield were all tributes, selected from the 10 sinful lands by the celestial tribute world. The word tribute was filled with the condescending coldness and contempt of the celestial tribute world towards the living beings of the 10 sinful lands. It was a supreme authority that controlled life and death. Yu Luocha said in a low voice, "The people of the celestial tribute world said that this is a punishment for us and also a warning." Did anyone return alive? Wu Dao's true body asked. The Rakshasa kings shook their heads with gloomy expressions. A king said miserably, "For countless years, our clansmen have multiplied and passed down their legacies, but no one has been able to escape this fate. There were some who tried to fight back, but in the end, they failed miserably, implicating even more of their clansmen and causing them to die. Although we were lucky enough not to become tributes and cultivate to the grotto heaven realm, one day, we will also be taken away by the people of the celestial tribute world. It won't be long before we all die outside." Wu Dao's main body remained silent. He suddenly recalled what Qinglian's true body had seen in the treasure pagoda in the celestial tribute realm. Those were some well-preserved Dao fruits, and there were Rakshasas among them. Above the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda, Qinglian's true body was also unable to set foot there. There might be many well-preserved Rakshasa grotto heavens on it. Apart from dying in battle in the evil demon battlefield, these Rakshasas would probably become Dao fruits and grotto heavens placed in the treasure pagoda for the powerhouses of the 3,000 worlds to choose from. All the living beings of the Rakshasas and the 10 sinful grounds in this world were merely tributes to the celestial tribute world. Because he was born in Tianhuang mainland, Wu Dao's main body did not have a good impression of the Rakshasa race. However, he was even more disgusted by the evil actions of the celestial tribute world. They reared billions of living beings in the 10 sinful grounds for them to kill wantonly. Even their bloodline descendants were not spared, and they were reduced to tributes for generations. Those actions were truly inhumane and went against the heavenly Tao. In fact, there were many humans in the 10 sinful grounds. If the Rakshasas and Yakshas were innately cruel, what wrong had the bloodline descendants of the human race done? Furthermore, there were still many doubts as to what the 9 Netherworld Emperor did in the past. The so-called heinous crimes were merely excuses for the celestial tribute world. Wu Dao's main body buried those doubts in his heart for the time being and looked up at the firmaments with 2 balls of purple flames burning in his eyes. Right now, the most important thing for him was to leave this place as soon as possible. More than 10 kings of the celestial tribute world died, including the 2 from the heavenly courts. This matter could not be hidden for long. Of course, the thing that made Wu Dao's main body uneasy was the yen word on his palm that could not be removed. "Sir, are you thinking of leaving?" a Rakshasa king asked cautiously, as though he could tell the intentions of Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body nodded gently and asked instead, "What can I do?" Although the Rakshasa race beings had never left, they had been imprisoned here for generations after all and knew this world the best. The Rakshasa king said, "This world is filled with powerful restrictions. If anyone leaves without permission, they will definitely trigger a counterattack. All these years, there have been clansmen who tried to leave by force but were killed mercilessly by the power of the restrictions. We speculate that the power of an emperor might be able to break through the restrictions of this world." "Emperor realm?" Wu Dao's main body murmured softly. The Rakshasa king laughed bitterly and said, "Because of the existence of such restrictions, our cultivation will be suppressed and we can't break through to the emperor realm at all. We can only be trapped here." Wu Dao's main body cultivated the Wu Dao purgatory to greater mastery. Once released, it could suppress all boundary emperors. However, boundary emperors were not true emperors after all. Although there was only a difference of 1 word, the difference in power between the 2 was like heaven and earth. If he only relied on the Wu Dao purgatory and the true Wu Dao body, even if he pushed his bloodline to the limit, he would not be able to reach the emperor realm. However, if he used the prison's suppressing cauldron and attacked with his full strength, it was very likely that he would be able to reach the Emperor realm. At that thought, Wu Dao's main body did not delay and directly soared into the sky. In a flash, he arrived at the end of the sky. As far as his eyes could see, he could even clearly see the dense restriction runes in the sky. Under these restriction runes, Wu Dao's main body felt a huge pressure. The expert who set up these restriction runes is probably not an ordinary Emperor Lord. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's main body. However, no matter what, he had to give it a try. The blood qi of Wu Dao's main body rose and instantly pushed his bloodline to the limit. His entire body became a little blurry and a huge furnace with blazing flames appeared in midair. Under the support of the 6 flames, the furnace was burned red and hung in the sky like a scorching sun. Not only did the furnace expand, but it was also about to break through the world. In the next moment, a purgatory appeared around the huge furnace. Flames soared into the sky and burned the sky continuously, trying to refine the restriction runes on it. Countless Rakshasa race members looked up at this scene with shocked expressions. This was the true burning of the heavens. However, under the burning of countless flames, the restriction runes in the sky did not show any signs of dissipating. Instead, they condensed a brilliance and began to counterattack. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 types of power began to collide continuously, letting out earth-shattering sounds. Both sides had only exchanged blows for a moment, but the purgatory in midair and the heaven and earth furnace were at a disadvantage. The flames around the furnace even showed signs of extinguishing. At this moment, an ancient bronze square cauldron appeared and the world trembled. End of chapter. Chapter 28:33. The bronze square cauldron seemed to have come from the end of the river of time. The cauldron was covered with the marks of time, as if it had been through countless wars and vicissitudes. The cauldron exuded an unparalleled aura. As soon as it descended, it shook the heavens and the earth. The entire world seemed to be unable to bear the pressure and started to shake slightly. It was the Emperor's divine weapon, the prison's suppressing cauldron. The carvings on the 4 sides of the cauldron suddenly lit up and released balls of dazzling light. The carvings on the cauldron seemed to have come alive. A dragon's roar, a phoenix's cry, a turtle's roar, and a tiger's roar sounded almost at the same time, echoing between the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, the figures of the 4 sacred spirits flew out of the cauldron and surrounded it. They carried the prison's suppressing cauldron and slammed it into the sky above them. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening sound, the earth shook and the clouds changed color. The runes in the sky dimmed in an instant. But soon, an even more dazzling light burst out and a fierce counterattack was launched. The runes in the sky that was burning red were shining, releasing a vast amount of restrictive energy. It was as turbulent as the sea and poured down like the Milky Way, illuminating the void. Sizzle! In Wu Dao's purgatory, the flames of the heaven and earth cauldron could not withstand it and gradually extinguished. There was a strange sound and smoke rose. Wu Dao's original body also appeared again. The runes in the sky shone brightly and the restrictive energy gathered together to form a huge beam of light. It fell from the sky and charged toward Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body's heaven-defying action had finally triggered a fierce counterattack from the heavens and the earth. The group of Rakshasa looked up at the sky and was shocked to see this. Every rune at the end of the sky seemed to have turned into a star. Tens of thousands of rays of starlight fell from the sky. It was a scene of the end of the world. Oh no! The messenger of the world of spirits has angered the heavens. I don't know what kind of disaster it will bring. We won't be wiped out, right? In the history of the 9th Hell-Sind land, there were many powerful Rakshasa people who tried to challenge the heavens and break out of the cage. However, they all failed miserably. Not only that, but this kind of action would also bring about a greater punishment, causing many Rakshasa people to suffer. The Rakshasas below were in a mess, trying to hide in all directions. However, the sky covered the entire area. Every living being under the sky had countless places to hide. Even the Yaksha Dread King felt uneasy. The power that erupted from the sky had far exceeded what he could endure. It was enough to destroy him 10,000 times over. Rumble! Before the runic light beam descended, Wu Dao grabbed the prison suppressing cauldron and raised it high above his head, using it as a shield. Compared to the huge beam of light descending from the sky, Wu Dao's body was as small as a speck of dust. He quickly fell and heavily crashed onto the ground. Boom! The ground trembled, and a huge crater was smashed open. Countless huge cracks spread in all directions. Wu Dao's true body lay inside, motionless and covered in wounds. The hell-suppressing cauldron was not far away, and the 4 saint spirits dimmed as they fell into a deep slumber. This person should be dead. Many Rakshasas turned pale as a thought flashed through their minds. Cough, cough. At this moment, Wu Dao's main body struggled to stand up. He coughed twice and spat out a mouthful of blood. He's not dead. The Rakshasas widened their eyes in disbelief. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath and tried his best to circulate the surging blood in his body to heal his injuries. In fact, if the prison-suppressing cauldron had not blocked most of the damage from the runic light beam, his body and soul would have been destroyed. The Rakshas's guess was right. In order to break the seal and break this heaven and earth cage, one's strength had to be at the Emperor realm. Moreover, the strength of an ordinary Emperor realm cultivator would not be able to break it. Wu Dao's main body activated his bloodline to the maximum and released Wu Dao's purgatory. Then, he used the prison-suppressing cauldron to release the strength of an ordinary Emperor realm cultivator. Even so, it was still not enough to shake the sky. The runes in the sky were still shining. The power of the seal continued to accumulate. It was obvious that it was preparing for a second attack. Wu Dao's main body was already injured. Even with the prison-suppressing cauldron, he could not hold on for long. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the blood in his body was surging. He could not even suppress it. His chest felt like it was about to explode. Before he could react, he felt a tearing sensation in his chest. It was extremely painful. Then, a dark ancient mirror broke out of his chest. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror. Wu Dao's main body stared at the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. His pupils constricted and he looked shocked. It was not that he did not think of using the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. However, he gave up on this idea as soon as it appeared. Firstly, the Netherworld Treasure Mirror needed to devour a large amount of blood essence. It was very harmful to him. Once it failed, he would not be able to fight back. Secondly, with his current cultivation, even if he sacrificed a large amount of blood essence to activate the Netherworld Treasure Mirror, the power that erupted would not be able to fight against the runic seal in the sky. Of course, there was also the most important point that he was most afraid of. The origin of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was unknown. It was extremely evil and bloodthirsty. If he fed it his own blood essence, he was worried that he would end up raising a tiger and even suffer a backlash. Now, the reason why he was so shocked was that the appearance of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was not under his control. Wu Dao's main body stared at the mirror surface of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. A blood-red light appeared in the center. It was not his blood. If the Netherworld Treasure Mirror devoured his blood essence, he and the Netherworld Treasure Mirror would establish a connection and control this divine weapon. At this moment, the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was completely out of his control. This meant that the blood in the ancient mirror did not come from his body. Someone was controlling the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. In other words, the owner of the blood was controlling it. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror turned around and suddenly pointed at Wu Dao's main body. The blood-red light on the mirror continued to elongate, crossing the center of the mirror. It was like a blood-red pupil, firmly locking onto the martial Dao body. The Netherworld pupil. In an instant, Wu Dao's main body felt a chill down his spine. A strong sense of danger descended. He almost could not bear it and subconsciously wanted to release Wu Dao's purgatory and Yuanwo Grotto heaven at the same time. At this moment, he finally experienced the horror that Hell Master Kong Quan experienced when he died under the Netherworld pupil. Back then, Hell Master Kong Quan did not even last a breath under the gaze of the Netherworld pupil. He turned into a pool of blood and died. Yet now, This wisp of blood within the Netherworld treasure mirror was obviously much more formidable than his bloodline. Even without the support of the Netherworld treasure mirror, Wu Dao's main body already felt an irresistible pressure from the blood in the mirror. How could this be? The Netherworld treasure mirror had always been in his Yuanwu grotto heaven. How could there be someone else's bloodline? Whose bloodline would have such terrifying power and will? End of chapter. Chapter 2834. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's true body as he vaguely thought of something. However, before he could react, the runes that shone in the firmaments had already converged into a resplendent seal ocean. Torrential waves surged like a tsunami, crashing down towards Wu Dao's true body. Rumble. Boom. The entire world could not bear the burden and trembled continuously while the ground quaked. Countless mountains and ancient trees on the ground collapsed and were drowned by the torrential waves. Although the rune wave was aimed at Wu Dao's true body, the countless Rakshasa beneath were not spared as well. Many Rakshasas could only watch this scene with their eyes wide open. They had nowhere to run and their faces were filled with despair. Right then, the Netherworld mirror in front of Wu Dao's true body suddenly turned and aimed at the incoming rune wave. The Netherworld treasure mirror floated in midair like a gloomy and terrifying eye, and the pupil of the eye was suffused with a strange bloody light. All of a sudden, a streak of blood light burst forth from the single eye and shot towards the incoming rune wave. Compared to the rune wave that covered the skies, the streak of blood light seemed extremely tiny. However, it was like a blood-colored saber that tore the rune wave into two. Countless runes collapsed and turned into nothingness before they could descend. The blood light that burst forth from the Netherworld mirror was way too terrifying. Even after tearing through the rune wave, its power was not depleted as it slashed towards the boundless firmaments. Sizzle! It was as though a blood-colored saber had sliced through a stone slab and let out an ear-piercing sound. The blood light extended from above until the end of the firmaments, leaving behind a ghastly blood scar in the skies. Wherever the blood light passed, countless runes were destroyed and their light dimmed. As time passed by, the blood light on the Netherworld mirror gradually faded before vanishing. The power of the blood light was depleted as well. This attack exhausted the power of the bloodline in the Netherworld mirror. Losing its support, the Netherworld mirror fell to the ground once more and turned into an ancient, gray mirror. Wu Dao's true body waved his sleeves and retracted the Netherworld mirror. In just a short while, he had already understood many things. If his guess was correct, the bloodline in the Netherworld treasure mirror should have come from the Brahma Ghost Mother. Back when Ghost Mother Brahma had awakened in the 9 Serenities abyss in the ghost world, she had taken the Netherworld mirror out of him and sent it back into his body. At that time, Wu Dao's main body didn't think too much about it. Now that he thought about it, the Brahma Ghost Mother must have left a wisp of her bloodline in the underworld mirror. The Brahma Ghost Mother's goal was to use him to break the shackles of the 9 Serenities' sinful land. It wasn't an accident that he was sent to the 9 underworld's sin grounds. Only by using the blood of a great emperor to activate the Netherworld treasure mirror would he be able to break through the restrictions of this world. Kakaka. At this moment, a cracking sound came from the sky. Wu Dao's main body looked up. Cracks began to appear around the bloody scar in the sky, and they quickly spread in all directions. Soon they covered the entire sky. The entire world was about to collapse. Countless Rakshasas below looked at this scene. Some were excited, some were happy, some were confused, and some were uneasy. They had been imprisoned here for generations. Now that they saw the cage of heaven and earth shatter, they were about to regain their freedom. Naturally, they were excited. But at the same time, many Rakshasas had been freed, but they didn't know where to go. Their future was uncertain. The 9 Serenities' sinful land's destruction would definitely alarm the celestial tribute world. After all, they were once sinful spirits imprisoned by the celestial tribute world. Now that they had offended the celestial tribute world, where would they find a place to stay? The celestial tribute world would hunt them down everywhere. Their people in this world were full of unknowns about the 3,000 worlds. Even if they escaped from the Nine Serenities' sinful land, how far could they go? Your Excellency, please save us and give us a direction. The Rakshas's kings finally looked at Wu Dao's main body and knelt down. After all, the Nine Serenities' sinful land was broken by the messenger of the ghost realm. The fate of the Rakshasas in this sinful land could only be entrusted to him. Whether it was in terms of cultivation realm, combat strength, or identity as the messenger of the ghost realm, only this purple-robed man was qualified to lead them. In a sense, this messenger of the ghost realm was their Nine Serenities emperor in this world. Wu Dao's main body was silent as he looked at the Rakshas's expectant gazes. Whether it was because of the Nine Serenities' pure maiden or the Brahma ghost mother, Wu Dao's main body wouldn't stand by and let these Rakshasas fend for themselves. Moreover, these Rakshasas had been freed from the imprisonment of the Nine Serenities' sinful land. If they continued to cultivate, it was very likely that they would become quasi-emperors or even emperors in the future. If this group of Rakshasas was controlled, they would be a force that couldn't be ignored. However, it wasn't easy to settle this group of Rakshasas and get rid of the celestial tribute world's pursuit. There were hundreds of millions of Rakshasas and they were a massive race. How could they find a realm to settle them down in such a short period of time without being discovered? If Heaven Baron's sect took in this group of Rakshasas, they would probably be annihilated the next day. Wu Dao's main body's gaze inadvertently swept past the stone statue of the Nine Serenities' pure maiden. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and he thought of a place to go. Rumble. Boom. Right then, heaven and earth could no longer hold on. A loud boom came from the skies and the firmament shattered into countless pieces that fell. The Nine Serenities' sinful land had completely collapsed. Wu Dao's main body took out an ancient-looking immortal boat from the storage bag of the young man from before. It was the size of a palm but was extremely exquisite and had 9 floors. When one's spirit consciousness probed into the immortal boat, they would discover that the interior space of the immortal boat was unimaginably huge. During the forging process of the immortal boat, not only did the Sumeru mustard seed dermic Dao technique, a world fragment of an Emperor Realm expert was also integrated. That was a huge sum of money. World fragments were things that even Emperor Realm experts yearned for. The fact that a world fragment was integrated into an immortal boat was proof of how luxurious it was. It was precisely because of this that such a rare flying treasure was created. It was no exaggeration to say that the immortal boat was like another world. Wu Dao's main body took out the immortal boat and summoned 6 streams of flames to forcefully erase the spirit consciousness imprint on it before tossing it into the air. Board the boat. Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and did not say anything else. The Rakshasas were saved by Wu Dao's main body and naturally trusted him completely. One after another, they flew towards the immortal boat. At the same time, the martial soul of Wu Dao's main body established a connection with the immortal boat. Wu Dao's main body seemed to have discovered something and his mind moved. Every room on the ferry boat suddenly released a strong suction force. It was like a bottomless pit, dragging the surrounding Rakshasas. That dermic Dao technique was also the magical part of the immortal boat. Not only was it a flying treasure, but it also had the ability to swallow and store things. It could even be used for battle. Under the control of Wu Dao's main body's spirit consciousness, hundreds of millions of Rakshasas turned into light spots and surged into the immortal boat like carps crossing the river. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.